How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital.
That's difficult to answer.
this the end? There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? Oh, I'm burning in the dystopia. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the dystopia. This is the final genocide. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in dystopia. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in dystopia. This is the final sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? Travel the world and the seven seas. Everybody's looking for something. Some of them want to use you. Some of them want to get used by you. Some of them want to use you. Some of them want to be out you.
Won't anybody help us? What are we running for? When there's nowhere we can run to anymore. We can't afford to be innocent. Stand up and face the enemy. It's a do or die situation. We will be invincible. And with the power of conviction, there is no sacrifice. It's a do or die situation. We will be invincible.
Who the fuck is Karlyn? She's just some sweet lady. She's like in a knitting. She does like a knitting stream. She's like a knitting YouTuber. She does knitting.
Can we grow up a little bit and
Alt
not
Girl
be
sent $200.
retarded?
Have you
Please.
seen the work of Karlyn Borysenko? Anti-commie cult leader and is obsessed with looking at what actual far-left communists are talking about and organizing today, infiltrating them. They infiltrated the universities, schools, media. She has the receipts to back it up. Primary source evidence. Infestation is dire and she calls Republicans idiots eating slop. Agree.
Thank you for the big super chat. Yeah, oh, I know Karlyn B. She's solid. She's funny. I
The
like
Great
her.
Noticer sent $200.
And lastly, we ask that there be no recording or streaming of today's sessions from the floor. And any disruptive behavior in today's session will result in being removed from the call.
We please ask that there will be no recording or streaming of today's sessions from the floor. Any disruptive behavior today could result in being removed from the call. So, you know, just be a nice person. So with the little housekeeping things out of the way, let's jump right in.
Again, we ask no recording or streaming of today's session. And we ask that there be no recording or streaming of today's session from the floor. Any disruptive behavior in today's session will result in being removed from the call.
What up, guys? What up, what up, what up? Happy Tuesday. I hope everyone is having a great and fun-filled day. Man, oh man, oh man. You know, listen, my work on the internet is getting more attention than it has in a long, long time, and I'm really grateful for that. I really am. It's actually really cool. And you know what? It's like it is like amazing because for people who are newer to the channel, one of the first like you guys for people who are new, you don't even know what a struggle and what a fight it's been for the last several years. You really, bro, you have no idea. And so it is actually a weird feeling for me to actually have more people watching my work, asking really good questions, being interested. So many new people have shown up and they're actually just really interested in the primary source evidence, and they get as obsessed with it as like my kind of like my core community that's been around for a really long time. And it's a really good fear. Yeah, the veterans know. The veterans know. You guys, for people who are new, there are people like Reagan who have literally been with me every step of this journey for over 4 years. Reagan has watched almost as much socialism content as I have because she's been at almost every single stream for years and years and years. You guys don't know how we have suffered. You don't know. Brooks has been here for a long time. Brooks has been here for a while. We've got people like Average Person has been here for years. I don't know if Nick Incognito is in the chat. Nick Incognito has been here from the very beginning. And this is not to say that we don't welcome new people. We love it when new people join us. You guys do not know how much we have suffered on your behalf. You don't know how much we have suffered. Yup, Leonard's been around for a while. There's Nick. We got Judy. Judy's been around for a long time. Yup, we got a lot of people who've been doing this for a long, long time. Benjamin's been around. I'm sorry if I missed anyone that's been around for a long time. I'm just trying to like articulate, like, we have suffered for all of you. We have suffered and we have fought and we have yelled and we have pleaded with people to pay attention. And it is a little bit bittersweet, I think, for many of us that people are finally paying attention, because the reason people are paying attention finally is that the left is starting to cause a lot of chaos in our society. And it's not that the left hasn't been doing this. They've been doing this all along. The problem is that conservative media doesn't report on it. And if conservative media doesn't report on it, then people don't know, and they just assume that it's not happening. But the left puts out what they're doing on the internet all the time, and that is the material we track. And so I'm very excited that new people are here. It is, again, it's just a little overwhelming to me. It's overwhelming. You guys have got to understand. Yeah, Chris has yelled many times. There are members of my community that are blocked by some really famous influencers that consider themselves to be anti-communist, Phil Labonte, because they didn't want to listen. Okay. We have struggled. This is our struggle. When I write my memoir, the title of my memoir will be My Struggle, and I'm not even joking. I say this all because, like, again, it's just like, it's a very odd feeling for me to suddenly have so many more eyes on me than I have the past couple years. And I'm really trying to do you guys right. I really am. I'm trying to be very responsible about this because there's a lot that you guys need to know. And I want people to know that I'm taking this seriously. And I expect you guys to take it seriously when you're here, because this is a community of people that actually care about defeating the problem. You know, no matter how big I ever get, no matter how big this community ever gets, no matter how big this YouTube channel ever gets, the community aspect of it, and I want to be very clear about this, the community aspect of this is going to be the center and the core of what I do. Because it's not just me going out there and researching the left and you know, exposing the left and all that stuff. There are so many people in this community that are doing the same thing. I teach people how to infiltrate trainings. I teach people how to record them. I teach people how to go undercover. And then they go and do those things and share that information with the world. The community is at the core of what we're building here. It is not about me. I just happen to be the person on camera on this particular YouTube channel. It is about all of us. If you want to do this stuff, if you want to get involved, if you actually want to, fight back, whatever that means, against the left, we will teach you how to do this, and then we will help you do it. But there's something I want to make very, very clear for the new people. And I bring this up because someone just asked me again today. Do you guys know, does anyone want to guess? And I may have just given away the joke. Does anyone want to guess what question I am asked literally every single day on the internet? Literally every single day of my life for years, I have been asked the same question. I'm getting it asked more now than ever. Does anyone want to guess what is the number one thing I'm asked? Karlyn, what do we do? What do we do? How do we defeat the left? How do we defeat the left? What do we do? And I give exactly the same answer every single time. I posted a video today. You can find it on my X, my Twitter. I think I have a TikTok now. You can find it on my Substack. It's a real short video. It's about 3 minutes long. You can find it on the YouTube channel as well. I posted a video today answering this question, but I want to just expound on it a little bit more at the beginning of this stream. The number one thing that you need to do to fight back against the left is you have got to learn the enemy that you are fighting. It's time to Sun Tzu this shit, guys. And this is getting very serious. The left is emboldened. The left is highly organized. And most people on the right have no clue what they're talking about. But it's even worse than that. Most people on the right think they understand their enemy, when in fact they have been completely misinformed by their own influencers and commentators, because what the influencers and commentators are interested in doing is driving a political narrative. They're not interested in defeating the left. I cannot emphasize this enough. I have people all across the political spectrum who watch my channel. I did not vote for Trump in 2024, guys. I didn't. I did in 2020. I did not in 2016. The reason that I didn't vote for Trump in 2024 is because I don't believe that Trump is going to do what is required to defeat the left. And the reason I don't believe that Trump is going to do what's required to defeat the left is that he doesn't even understand it. Republicans do not understand this. Conservatives do not understand this. And the reason is that they are obsessed with pushing a political narrative to demonize the Democrats, the Democrats, the Democrats, the Democrats, the Democrats. Most people on the right, and I judge this based on what I see in my comments, what I see in my replies, what I see overall in the zeitgeist. Most people on the right are convinced that Democrats and communists are the same thing. They're convinced that liberals and socialists are the same thing. They have no idea that these are different groups. And so every single time you guys are hearing, we have to stop the Democrats, we have to stop the communists, we have to stop the Democrats, you're actually running cover for the real far left. The far left is doing what they're doing and as successful as they are because literally no one is paying attention to them, because the conservative commentators and influencers have diverted all attention around their narrative to the Democrats, the liberals, the Democrats, the liberals, the Democrats, the liberals. Guys, this is an analogy I use all the time, but I'm going to use it again here. We have the magician over on this side of the stage, and the magician is doing the magic trick on this side of the stage. The magician's assistant is over on this side of the stage, and she's wearing a sparkle dress, and you can see her tits and her ass, and she's twirling around the stage in her sparkle dress with her boobs hanging out so that you are distracted, so you don't see the magician over here. The magician is where the trick is done, but you're all looking over here. This is the Democrats and the liberals. The Democrats and the liberals are the magician's assistant. They're the woman in the sparkle dress that is there to distract you, so you don't look at the magician and you don't see the magic trick being done. That is what we're talking about here. And so I tell people literally every single day, if you want to defeat the left, you have to sit down and learn who your enemy is. And I'm not talking about reading the Communist Manifesto, and I'm not talking about reading Hegel or the Frankfurt School or things like that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about looking at real leftist activists in the real world today and looking at what they're doing, looking how they're organizing, looking at what they're talking about, looking at the materials they're reading. Just because some communist wrote a paper or a book 50 or 100 years ago does not mean that paper or book is influential on real communist and socialist activists in the United States right now. We have to look at what they are doing today. Today's far left, not 50 years ago, not 100 years ago. Today. Because today is where the problem is. Today is the reality that we have to hinge into. And I've been doing this a long time, guys. And you know, my friend Bill made up just the most perfect meme. Bill's been around the channel forever. Almost every single time I tell conservatives, if you want to defeat the left, you need to sit down and learn who you're fighting. They say, no, but what do you really want us to do, Karlyn? I said I want you to sit down and learn. And they're like, no, but what do we do after we learn? And I say, I'm not going to tell you what you do after you learn, because the first thing you need to do is sit down and learn. And they're like, but why do we need to sit down and learn? And I say, because you don't understand the enemy you're fighting, and you need to learn the enemy you're fighting. And they say, can you just make a 5-minute video for us? And I say, no, I cannot make a 5-minute video unteaching you every falsehood that your conservative influencers have been pushing on you for years, and teaching you the real truth at the same time. And then they say, but maybe you can make a 10-minute video. And I say, no, the best I can do is 90 minutes. And that's my re-education course. Go watch that. I don't want to sit and watch a video for 90 minutes. Well, guess what? Then you are not smart enough to be on my channel, because you don't actually care about solving this problem. Because if you can't sit your ass down and watch a 90-minute video, which is about as entertaining as I can make it, because this is not a show for your fucking entertainment. This is actually to educate you about what is really going on in the world. And they go, well, I don't want to watch it, and you're a big meanie. And I go, oh yeah, well then you're going to suffer and die at the hands of the left, and that's not my fault. And then they start spreading things around the internet like this about me. Then they say, Karlyn is just really undercover Antifa. And this is all because they don't want to sit their asses down and learn. I have this conversation literally almost every single day. And what I will tell people is that what I'm doing here in my community is I am trying to build a group of people. Hang on. I am trying to build a group of people that are committed to solving this problem, that want to learn as much as they can about this, that all have maybe different interests in this, but they are committed to primary source evidence and hinging into reality. And we do not allow retards in our community. We have got to start saying no to conservative retards. We have to start saying no. And listen, I am not saying that all conservatives are retarded. That is not what I am saying. There are many smart conservatives out there. I like to think that any conservative who watches my channel and actually listens to what I'm saying is a smart conservative, and I'm not talking about you. But also, smart conservatives know, and I know this because the smart conservatives on this channel have confirmed this to me. Smart conservatives know that they are surrounded by retards on their own side, and it sucks, man. It sucks. It sucks where every single time I don't follow the approved conservative narrative when I'm trying to teach people something about the left, they go, you're a secret leftist. Who are you really funded by? Are you sure you're not part of Antifa? Why don't you lose weight? Why are you so ugly? And me. This is every day of my life. We have got to start telling these people no. We have got to start telling these people to shut the fuck up and sit down and be quiet and try very hard not to break anything, because the adults have to take back control of what is going on. Okay? If you are smart and you want to dig into this and you want to understand your enemy deeply, then you are welcome here. Quite frankly, I don't care if you're a conservative or not. I don't care if you're a national socialist. I don't care if you're an independent. I don't care if you're a libertarian. I don't care if you're a disaffected Democrat. I don't care. I truly do not care what your political affiliation is. If you want to come here and deeply dig into this evidence and learn and research and do all this with us, because we are going to create the most robust anti-communist community on the internet, and our stuff isn't going to be grounded in conservative bullshit narrative political talking points. Our stuff is going to be grounded in real world evidence. That is what we're doing. We are going to work together to map out the modern activist left. We are going to work together to educate, hopefully, millions of people about what is going on in the world. This is not just about me. This is about all of us. We need to be the fucking pebble that goes into the water that creates the ripple effect, where we need to go out into the world and find all of the smart people. See, this is exactly what we don't allow here, Jim. I'm kind of a loudmouth. You're kind of banned. You're kind of banned. This is what I mean when I say we need to keep out the retards. If someone comes into my chat and the very first thing they say in the chat is, "You're a loudmouth, and why is your ego so big? And you need to control yourself, and me. Go away. You can leave. There's the door. You are not welcome here. Do people think I'm fucking around? I am not fucking around at all. I do not want to live in a Marxist society. And I actually do think the left is going to win. I 1,000% think the left is going to win, and I think they're going to win sooner than we think. And until people wake the fuck up and start hinging into reality, then there is nothing that is going to change that, guys, because Trump is not going to save you. The GOP is not going to save you. Everyone has to step up and save themselves. And if you want to do that, then you are welcome in this community, and we will be the fucking ripple that actually gets people involved and wakes them up to what is going on. And that's what I'm trying to do, man. That is all I'm trying to do. I don't think I'm asking too much. That is what I'm trying to do. So on this channel, we study the real radical revolutionary far left. Welcome to everyone that's new. I stream Monday through Friday, 5 days a week at 5 p.m. Eastern time. Then we do Socialism Saturdays on Saturdays at 6 p.m. So actually, I stream 6 days a week. You can also find my work over on Substack. That is Karlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. And I am 100% funded by people just like you, who just want access to the information, just want the primary source evidence, just want the receipts. I do not bring you a single political talking point because I am not funded by any political organization. I am funded by people who send in super chats on the channel and sign up for my Substack, $8 a month, $80 a year. And that's how I keep this completely devoid of any political bullshit, is to become funded directly by you guys. And I really appreciate you letting me do what I do. We got a new channel member in Pablo. Welcome, Pablo. We got a new channel member in Default User. Welcome, welcome. Karlyn, my wife and I watched your intro to Antifa, and I just want you to know it has been transformative. All this crap that's been going on makes so much more sense. There's a method to their madness. Thank you for that. I do appreciate it. Yeah, Latrina is absolutely right here. And if you want to watch that, head over to my Substack, and you want to go to the How to Speak Socialist section, and then go to the re-education video. This is re-education and anti-communist introduction to the far left. That is what she is talking about. I will put the link in the chat if people want to go watch it. It is also available on YouTube. And I seem to be having trouble with the Rumble chat for some reason. I'll fix that when I can. Rumble chat acting weird. Well, what can you do? It's Rumble. Sorry, Rumble. We got Gothic's been here 10 months, never been the same since, but learned so much. I do appreciate that, Gothic's. Thank you, Chaos, for the super sticker. Fizzled, why do you think we have 10 to 15 years left before the left tries to overthrow the government? I've done, you know what, maybe I'll do a longer video about this. I actually have done videos about this. I've done write-ups about it over on the Substack. The too long didn't read for why I think we have 10 to 15 years left is just looking at how much the left has escalated and watching how they're changing their tactics and looking at how they're organizing and listening to what they're talking about. By the way, the left has actually said this too. We can, and it may be, quite frankly, it may be sooner than that. What the left is waiting for is a pre-revolutionary crisis. It could potentially happen sooner than that, but it's just looking at the escalation over the last 100 years. And I've, again, done more thorough analysis, but I'm not pulling this out of my ass. There is actually a reason that I think it's going to escalate in the next 10 to 15 years. And it's all based on the tactics the left are using now. And you can go find the write-up on the Substack. You can go find the videos I've made about it. I'm happy to address the topic in a newer video, but I just don't want to do the breakdown right now because, quite frankly, we got other stuff to talk about. But I do appreciate the super chat. Thank you, No Mail. Appreciate that. Ohio Rizzler, is it better for you if we subscribe to Substack or if we join YouTube? I prefer Substack. That is my definite preference. But if you prefer YouTube, then join YouTube. Do whatever you prefer, but just know I do prefer Substack. But I appreciate you asking the question. Thanks so much. All right, guys. Well, there's a couple things I want to go over today. The first thing I want to look at actually happened on Twitter earlier, and I just want to show you guys this because I think that this is just something you'll be interested in. So when we say primary source evidence about the left, I am constantly looking for leftist propaganda to show, like, when it shows up in the world. So one of the things I do, and this may be a little bit nerdy and weird, and I understand that, and you can see I have a pile of it sitting here on my desk. I am a connoisseur, a collector of leftist propaganda. Because when we collect their propaganda, the flyers, the stickers, the zines, little books like this that show up in the real world, when we collect these things and we actually sit down and we read these things, it tells us so much information about the far left. It tells us what groups are organizing. It tells us what messages they're pushing. It tells us where they're located. It tells us how to find them on social media. It tells us what digital things to look for online. So collecting their propaganda in the real world, and this is something, by the way, anyone can do. I'm going to be opening up a Discord that I have to more people very soon, that I want to create places where people can actually come into, like, the Discord and post the leftist propaganda that they're seeing in the real world. Because if we can start collecting this on a mass level, that's going to be hugely informative to helping us actually map out the modern left, because that is what we need to do. We need to create and this is a huge project, what I'm talking about right now. We're talking about this is going to take us years to do because the left is so big. We've already kind of started tinkering around with this, but we need to get serious about it. So one of the ways that you can help, thank you, Ohio Rizzlers, I do appreciate it. One of the ways you guys can help is by actually, if you see leftist propaganda show up in the real world, take a picture of it or just take it down and take it with you, and then take a picture of it at home, because then you at least get it out of the environment, whatever. But send me the information. So here's an example, and we are always looking for this stuff on Twitter. You can post it on Twitter. You can DM me on Twitter. You can put this out. I will promote you if you do this sort of stuff. Here's an example. We've got Dr. Owen Anderson, who apparently is affiliated with TPUSA, has something to do with ASU. Okay, fine. I don't know who he is, but that's fine. An ASU student found this Antifa recruitment brochure on campus today. There's a big deal now that Antifa is classified as terror. Well, no, it should have always been a big deal, actually. See, this is what I'm talking about with conservatives. Conservatives are like, Antifa recruiting on college campuses is only a big deal now that Trump has declared them a terrorist organization. I'm sorry, did you think that Antifa recruiting on college campuses was not a big deal before Trump declared them a terrorist organization? Did you not think it was a big deal then? I digress. This is my frustration. This is my struggle with conservatives right here. It's only important when Trump says something. Okay. Let's just go right to the flyer. So here is the flyer. Here is the piece of propaganda, and you can see they did a horrible job. They actually did a horrible job of this because you can barely effing read what it says. Okay, you can barely read what it says. If you're going to take a picture of something, make sure you can actually read it. I can't even read most of this page. But I digress again. We do have their Instagram account, right? So we have their Instagram account right here. So we can go and find them on Instagram. And so, okay, yeah, this actually does start to look like some far left account. Now, there's not much on this Instagram account. They don't have a link or anything like that. But we can go in and see, okay, well, they've got pretty leftist propaganda. That looks like pretty leftist propaganda to me. And here, this is the digital copy of the flyer that was handed out on campus. So oftentimes when you're tracking leftist propaganda, if we find things in the real world, like I got this directly from Antifa in Boston. I got this pamphlet directly from them, okay? I then went online and I found the digital copy of this pamphlet because if they're handing it out in the real world, they almost always have a digital copy online. So even if we find stuff in the real world, we want to make sure we're going to their websites and figuring out what they're actually handing out, because once you find their website, once you find one pamphlet, you get all the other stuff too. And then you start to get your treasure trove of leftist propaganda so you can start to really figure some stuff out. Have I ever heard of Norman Dodd and the Reese Committee? I have not, S-Freak, but maybe I'll look into that. I have no idea what that's about, though. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it. So let's just take a look at this real quick, because it's actually a really short thing. Who are the members of Antifa? The term is basically slang, coming from a German abbreviation of the word anti-fascism, meaning anti-fascist. But what does it mean? But what does anti-fascist mean, do you ask? A great example of anti-fascists are soldiers fighting against Nazis in World War II. Granted, they most likely didn't use the exact term Antifa, but still died to ensure fascism would not rise around the world, and that fight still lives today. Always comes back to World War II every single time. There is a common misconception that Antifa is an organized group seeking to overthrow the U.S. Antifa is absolutely trying to overthrow the US, but they are not an organized group in the way that the right thinks of organizing groups. But it's not. To put it simply, Antifa is a type of ideology or political philosophy. It is not directly led by any single person. It is very abstract or conceptual word. Guys, they're telling you, Antifa is not led by any person. Because Antifa does not believe in hierarchy, okay? They are a flat organizational model. They have no structure. What that means is there's no head of the snake that you can cut off that is going to end Antifa. That is not going to happen. And anyone who thinks there is a head of the snake, and especially if those people think the head of the snake is George Soros, which is an absurd idea, anyone who thinks there is a head of the snake of Antifa does not know what they're talking about when it comes to Antifa. They are extremely anti-hierarchy. The hierarchy does not exist. On September 22nd, 2025, Donald Trump signed the executive order designating Antifa as a terrorist organization. The order gives the statement saying coordinated efforts against the federal law and its agents, ICE, by the way, by Antifa is domestic terrorism. How can the leader of a country choose to not think critically? Why is being against fascism a threat to the government? If you learn the meaning behind fascism and believe against that, you are inherently anti-fascist. A great video to help understand is what is fascism, and it gives good nuanced rise of fascism, okay? So what we see here, and by the way, I do have that video. I don't think we're going to get a chance to watch it today. We may watch it if we have time at the end. The bigger point I want to make, though, is that this is a very generic recruitment brochure for Antifa. You'll see Antifa doesn't even put their name on it. They've got a logo. Okay, fine. They have a logo here. But there's no website. There's no contact information. The purpose of this brochure on the college campus is to just plant the seed of an idea. That's the purpose of this. The purpose of this is not to get them to go to a meeting. The purpose is to plant the seed of an idea that to be Antifa means that you oppose the Nazis. Okay? That's all they're doing. And they're trying to plant that idea so that the next time there's messaging like this, the person who received that idea might be a little bit more open to it, and then so on and so forth until finally they get involved in far left politics and they start doing all sorts of crazy stuff. Robert, thanks for the super chat. At some point, don't they need to take overt direct action? Well, yes, taking direct action is absolutely a part of Antifa's playbook. We talk about that quite a bit. I appreciate you asking the question. But direct action is not the only thing Antifa does. And before you get someone to dress up in black bloc and take direct action, you have to be kind of like brought into the group. You have to be indoctrinated into their way of thinking. You have to read all their materials. You know, one of the reasons I harp on education so much, guys, is that the left is very, very heavy and militant about education. If you are in Antifa, you know, people ask me when I go out and I collect all this literature and all this propaganda stuff, people are like, Karlyn, do leftists actually read that stuff? Yes. Yes, they do. They absolutely do. It's the right that doesn't read the stuff. It's the left that does. And so one of the reasons we harp so much on education is because education is at the center of leftist organizing. If you are involved in Antifa, you've read all this stuff that I have in my hands right now. And I know that because I got all this stuff from directly, like from Antifa themselves. Everything in my hands here, I got from an Antifa table in Boston or an Antifa table in New York, okay? So they've read all this. That is what they do. They don't even get to the direct action part until they do the education part, okay? So that's why we have to have this at the center of what we're doing, because we will never be able to compete with the left if we don't understand how they're actually bringing people into their ecosystem. Anyway, I wanted to show you guys that brochure and just let you know that if you ever see stuff like this floating around in the world, please take a picture of it. Please document it. Please let us know. Post it on the internet. Do whatever. Tag me in it. I will retweet you and all that stuff, because this is how we know what they're doing right now. This is not 100 years ago. This is not a pamphlet that was written by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels 100 years ago. This is what they're doing right now. And so this is what we need to know in order to be able to understand how they're organized so that we can get ahead of them. All right? That's thing number one, but I want to get into the main aspect of our show. And the main aspect of our show actually comes from a video I released yesterday. So this is from my little undercover journey into the Revolutionary Communism Conference a couple months ago. Not a couple months ago, a couple weeks ago. Seems like forever ago now. This was at the beginning of September. At the beginning of September, we spent about 12 hours recording this Revolutionary Socialism Conference, and I haven't released half of the clips I have from this because I'm just kind of slowly dripping them out, but we have a ton of clips from this. And this was actually a meeting of revolutionary socialists all over the country talking about their ideas, and they said the quiet part out loud so many times. It was crazy. One of the things we heard them say out loud came from Jason. Jason is a leader in one of our favorite communist organizations, the Denver Communists. I know that Jason doesn't like me. I don't really like him. He's a communist. We are not friends. But I love Jason's content, and I love the content the Denver Communists put out because it is some of the most plain-spoken communism material on the internet. And so I can't hate Jason. I don't hate Jason. I'm not posting Jason's video on the internet because I dislike him as a person. We don't agree. We don't share the same values. He does me a great service by providing so much amazing socialism content. And it's awesome. Okay. It's awesome. Hey, you know what, guys? This is a retard answer. We don't do this. Hitler was not a communist. Because I've been getting this comment on my channel a lot lately, and you guys think you're being smart by doing this. Hitler was not a leftist. I don't like Hitler. Hitler was obviously the worst person that ever lived in the history of the world. The Holocaust killed over 10 million Jews. It was a horrible tragedy. Hitler is obviously burning in hell. Gas chambers have wooden doors. Everything happened the way we were taught it in school and all that stuff. I'm not saying Hitler was good. I'm saying Hitler was literally the worst person in the history of the world. But Hitler wanted to maintain private property ownership, and Hitler was fighting Marxism in Germany, and that is just a fact. And we deal with facts on this channel. We don't deal with made up bullshit. Anyone that says that Hitler was, Karlyn, you know who was the original socialist? Hitler was the original socialist. Shut the fuck up. Literally shut the fuck up and read a fucking history book and understand what you're talking about, because there is no possible way for Hitler to be a fucking leftist communist, because he literally gave away houses to people who had kids. Communists don't give away houses for having kids. Communists don't believe that houses should be owned. Communists don't believe that parents should have parental rights. So it is an absurd notion that Hitler was the original socialist, and we are dispensing of this, and I'm not tolerating it any fucking longer. Back to this. A real communist that wants to take away your ability to own a home, your ability to own land, your ability to own a business, your parental rights over your kids. This is a real communist in the real world right now. I want you to listen to what the real communist said a couple weeks ago.
One thing you said about insurrectionists, anarchists, or one thing that we've said about them, it's not the insurrection that we object to, it's the individual bit, it's the small group bit. We're working toward a mass insurrection. So that's not the part that we reject, and the same goes for I'll just say we love the essay by Trotsky, Why Marxists Oppose Individual Terrorism, and the individual bit is an important part of the title. All right, thanks.
Thank you, comrade.
Now, you just heard a communist call for a mass insurrection. So some of you might be a little distracted at whatever else the communist said, okay? That is a communist calling for a mass insurrection to overthrow the government. Let's be really clear. But I want you to just listen to his words again, because what we're going to listen to next is directly related to exactly what he said in this video. Listen again.
One thing you said about insurrectionists, anarchists, or one thing that we've said about them, it's not the insurrection that we object to, it's the individual bit, it's the small group bit. We're working toward a mass insurrection. That's not the part that we reject, and the same goes for I'll just say we love the essay by Trotsky, Why Marxists Oppose Individual Terrorism, and the individual bit is an important part.
Why Marxists oppose individual terrorism and why the terrorism bit is important. It's not the terrorism part that they're rejecting. It's the individual part. Okay? Listen just one more time to this last little section.
I'll just say we love the essay by Trotsky, Why Marxists Oppose Individual Terrorism, and the individual bit is an important part of the title. All right, thanks.
So how convenient for us. We have a video we can watch about that. We have a video posted from the Revolutionary Communist Party 2 weeks ago. And are they in Canada? Is this the Canada faction of the Revolutionary Communists of America? I think this is the Canada faction of the Revolutionary Communists of America. Anyway, they posted a video on their channel 2 weeks ago, Marxism versus individual terrorism. And one of the things they're going to specifically talk about in this video is why the Charlie Kirk assassin is not on their side. Because the Charlie Kirk, and I've said this from the beginning, I never thought the Charlie Kirk assassin was deep into far left politics. I never thought that the Charlie Kirk assassin was an Antifa, because Antifa does not believe in individual terrorism. Antifa has no problem with terrorism, but it's the individual that is the problem. It is not the terrorism. And so, yes, someone confirmed this is the Canada version. We have an American version too called the Revolutionary Communists of America. This is their Canadian brethren. And they posted a video 2 weeks ago explaining this philosophy. And we are going to listen to this video and we are going to listen to them talk about this philosophy. Before we get into that, I just want to do one more quick reminder. I already told you guys about signing up on the Substack. If you want to support the work, that's at Karlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. One more way you can support my work before we get into the video is you can head over to my merchandise store, the Red Menace Supply Company. This is at redmenacesupply.com. And the reason I bring this up is I have a sale going on in the store for these two designs, Antifa and Your Teachers Are Lying to You. You can get these on t-shirts and hoodies and notebooks and bags and like other stuff too. Just click on the design to see what it comes on. But all the merch with these designs is on sale for 25% off until tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow is the end of the sale. We will be launching our special limited edition Halloween collection tomorrow in the store. And so if you want to get these shirts, you're still going to be able to get them after tomorrow, but you're going to have to pay 25% more. Okay, so here's the Antifa collection. We got some stickers, tank tops, t-shirts. T-shirts come in different colors like gold and red and cement. And then we have the classic black and all that stuff. We also have the Your Teachers Are Lying to You design. And same thing, like t-shirts come in a couple different colors, long sleeve shirts, all sorts of cool stuff you can find in the store. Everything with this design, these two designs, is 25% off until tomorrow when we start our special Halloween month. Okay, so head over to Red Menace Supply if you want to get that stuff. And with that, let's get into our video. We are watching today Marxism versus individual terrorism. If you have questions at any point in this video, please make sure to put them in the chat. We will do our very best to answer them. If you just want to sit back and learn, that's cool too. Make sure you have mounted the like button for me. If you don't feel comfortable mounting the like button, you can shake the like button's hand. You can give the like button a kiss on the cheek. You can give the like button a slap on the ass. I don't really care what you do to the like button, but there's a shocking disparity between the number of people who are watching right now and the number of people who have done anything to the like button. The like button is our friend, guys. The like button brings more people into the stream. Do something to the like button, please. Anything you want. It's totally cool. All right, let's start the video.
When you think of the question of individual terrorism that we're discussing today, Marxism versus terrorism, we're not having this discussion in a vacuum, obviously. The background to that is the incredible events you saw in the United States last December. And, you know, what a time to be alive. Could you imagine 10 or 15 years ago, someone being shot in broad daylight, receiving such an outpouring of support? I don't think that would be the case. That would not have happened 10, 15 years ago. It expressed something deep about the world we live in today in 2024, 2025. And we talk all the time about this radicalization, this anger against the system. Well, and there's many polls about it.
Oh, hang on, we got a super chat from Average Person. Thank you, Average Person. Both the Seattle Revolutionary Socialists and the Revolutionary Communists of America held similar criticisms as each other with regard to Luigi Mangione, in that individual terrorism relegates the working class to a passive role rather than an active one. So what Average Person is saying is that, so there's a group of socialists called the Seattle Revolutionary Socialists. They're very connected to the Denver Communists. They're very revolutionary. The Revolutionary Communists of America are a completely separate communist group. So we're now talking about two distinct groups within the far left. And even both of them held the same opinion about Luigi shooting that healthcare CEO, in that they actually found it to be detrimental to their cause because they don't believe in individual terrorism. And again, it's not the terrorism piece they have a problem with, it's the individual piece.
But there's no poll that can capture that can express as well the sentiment in the population that this outpouring of support for this killing of a CEO in broad daylight. And actually, speaking of polls, it has been quantified, the support for the alleged shooter Luigi Mangione. I think you've all seen that at the time when it happened. You know, this poll that said that 41% of Americans aged 18 to 29 considered this murder acceptable. But there were other polls, actually. One of them said that 45% of American college students sympathize more with Luigi Mangione, and 17% only sympathize with the CEO, and 48% of American college students considered the murder total.
So they themselves equate Marxism with a form of terrorism? No, that's not what they're saying. That's not what, guys. In order for them to achieve a Marxist society, they must overthrow the government. You need to understand this. And maybe you're brand new and that's fine. In order for Marxism to win, in order for communists to win, they are not going to get elected into government and win that way. In order for Marxism and communism to win, they must overthrow the government. They do not believe this is terrorism. They believe this is the revolution required to achieve a better world, and they do genuinely believe they're creating a better world. They believe that. Whether or not you agree with them, and certainly I do not, they believe that, okay? That is what they think.
Totally or partially justified. And these numbers don't lie. And what is also incredible is it's all the political spectrum. There's people all across the so-called left-right divide that actually support Luigi and agree and sympathize with the murder of a CEO. So this is the incredible days in which we live in, and everybody can see that yes, it is about healthcare. It is about this hatred against the health companies, the private healthcare in the US. But obviously, it's about much more than that. And actually, there was the spokesperson, the press secretary, Democratic press secretary of the White House, which had said, she was asked on the spot, what do you think about the support for Luigi? And she said, obviously, this is horrific. Violence to combat any sort of corporate greed is unacceptable. She's involuntarily admitting that it is about corporate greed in general, which it is. And that's the point. And it does express this raw class anger that we saw in the US. And so many people can relate to this line in Luigi's manifesto. These parasites had it coming. But for us, this opens an opportunity to discuss this question in a more broad sense. Because yes, this act showed how millions hate the rich and want them to stop ruining the lives of ordinary workers. But the question is, how can we stop them? How can we really stop them for real? What are the methods that can contribute to the fight to end the suffering that these CEOs are imposing? And what if more of this happened? More acts like this shooting? What methods do we need, and what?
Was that just a soft call for more CEO shootings by more people? Again, like what they're saying in this video is they don't have a problem with the terrorism piece, they have a problem with the individual piece. Was that just a soft call for like more people to shoot CEOs?
Does express this raw class anger that we saw in the US, and so many people can relate to this line in Luigi's manifesto. These parasites had it coming. But for us, this opens an opportunity to discuss this question in a more broad sense. Because yes, this act showed how millions hate the rich and want them to stop ruining the lives of ordinary workers. But the question is, how can we stop them? How can we really stop them for real? What are the methods that can contribute to the fight to end the suffering that these CEOs are imposing? And what if more of this happened? More acts like this shooting?
Wow.
What methods do we need, and what work? So I think it offers a good opportunity to review the history of the Marxist position on the question of individual terrorism.
Yeah.
And it has, in fact, a long history in the Marxist movement, as some of you might know. But I think it's useful when discussing that to go back to the basics. Because yes, we are communists. We fight for the overthrow of the capitalist system. How? Well, history has shown that the capitalist system does create its own gravediggers. It has created an enormous working class, which alone has the power to overthrow the system. And this is not an arbitrary thing that we say. It's not.
I just want to remind people that when they are calling to overthrow capitalism, that means the United States government and the Constitution, because they believe that the United States government and the Constitution are completely grounded in capitalism, and they cannot achieve their post-capitalist society without abolishing capitalism.
Basics. Because yes, we are communists. We fight for the overthrow of the capitalist system. How? Well, history has shown that the capitalist system does create its own gravediggers. It has created an enormous
The
working class,
proletariat.
which alone has the power to overthrow the system. And this is not an arbitrary thing that we say. It's not because we like the workers or they're nice or good people. That's not always the case. It's because of their role in production. That through its numbers and its role, it has the power to paralyze the economy and to build a new society, to build a new socialist society.
So they want to use the workers to paralyze the economy. This is what they're talking about with the mass general strike in 2028 that we've talked about, getting the workers organized so they all go on strike at the same time to completely cripple the economy. Listen again.
Figures. It has created an enormous working class, which alone has the power to overthrow the system. And this is not an arbitrary thing that we say. It's not because we like the workers or they're nice or good people. That's not always the case. It's because of their role in production. That through its numbers and its role, it has the power to paralyze the economy and to build a new society, to build a new socialist society, a socialist economy. And that's why the Marxists, the communists, seek to organize the working class. And that's why we pay scrupulous attention to developments in the workers' movement. And we defend anything and everything that strengthens the unity of the working class, strengthens its confidence in its own forces and its understanding of the necessity of and the effectiveness of mass struggle against capitalism. And we reject the methods that go and the ideas that go against these objectives. But the second thing to keep in mind when discussing that, which is almost as important, is that we absolutely reject the bourgeois morality that we see around us. Because yeah,
What does he mean by that? Pop quiz for the chat. When he says we reject the bourgeois morality that we see around us, what does he mean by that? And don't say capitalism. Capitalism is not the right answer to this question. Okay, you need to use a different word. What does the bourgeois mentality mean to a communist? Waiting for the chat. There's a little delay. I want to see what your answers are. When the communist says the bourgeois mentality, what do they mean? I'm looking for one word in particular, and I have not yet seen that word. I am looking for one word in particular, and I have not yet seen that word. We're not moving until someone gives me the word. Think about the context of this presentation. What does the communist mean when he says bourgeois morality? Think about that. Guys, stop just throwing keywords in the chat and do not say capitalism. Capitalism is not the correct answer. I am looking for a one-word answer. Thank you. Bought with the gold star. Reagan got it at the same time. We got a whole bunch of people who got the individual at the same time. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You guys got there. It took a second, but you got there. When he is saying bourgeois morality, he means the morality of the individual. These are communists. These are collectivists. They do not believe in individualism. To uphold the individual is to uphold capitalism. To uphold the individual is to uphold meritocracy. Meritocracy leads to uneven wealth distribution where some people have more than other people. Okay, so if we're upholding the individual, we need to have a meritocratic society. If we have a meritocratic society, that means that some people will have more resources than other people. That creates hierarchy and that creates oppression. Does everyone understand how this works? Okay. You cannot have individualism without capitalism. You can't have capitalism without individualism because the left specifically defines capitalism as private property ownership. If someone is working in if an individual is in a meritocratic society and is working hard and putting themselves out there, they're going to earn more money than other people. Okay. If an individual is merit based and they achieve based on their merit, their individual accomplishments, they will have more money than other people. That creates the hierarchy. The hierarchy creates oppression. Communists are collectivists. They believe in eradicating the individual. Okay? That's what he's talking about. Let's go back and listen again, and I'm sure he's going to say it.
Forces and its understanding of the necessity of and the effectiveness of mass struggle against capitalism. And we reject the methods that go and the ideas that go against these objectives. But the second thing to keep in mind when discussing that, which is almost as important, is that we absolutely reject the bourgeois morality that we see around us. Because, yeah, these people said, the violence is unacceptable in general. The same people that just funded a genocide, they preach, that thou shalt not kill while perpetrating the worst violence all across the world. And it's really important to not give an inch to the hypocritical morality of the ruling class that claim that violence is unacceptable while doing the opposite every single day. And actually, I would say that the reaction to the shooting of the CEO shows that millions do reject this hypocritical morality or are starting to reject it. It is in and of itself a progressive development and an enormous symptom of the decay of the system, that millions refuse to accept what the ruling class want us to believe. So no, we don't judge the actions of Luigi from the standpoint of abstract morality. It's from the standpoint of the interests of the working class, the interests of the fight for socialism. And that's been the position of Marxists on individual terrorism in general, all through.
There it is. We're not upset with Luigi for shooting a healthcare CEO. That's not why we're upset. We're upset with Luigi because it was an act of individual terrorism rather than a working class uprising. That's what they're upset about.
Enormous symptom of the decay of the system, that millions refuse to accept what the ruling class want us to believe. So no, we don't judge the actions of Luigi from the standpoint of abstract morality. It's from the standpoint of the interests of the working class, the interests of the fight for socialism. And that's been the position of Marxists on individual terrorism in general, all through history. And yes, there has been a long history of this question coming up in the movement, in the revolutionary movement. And obviously, the most interesting and rich example of this is the Russian revolutionary movement. And we pay scrupulous attention. We study the history of the Russian Revolution of 1917, the events after, the events before. But long before the Bolsheviks took.
I just wanted to hit that note. This is what I was talking about earlier when I say that education is at the forefront of leftist activism. He just said, guys, we study the Russian Revolution. We study these things. We study what the organizers did back then. And they do. The Revolutionary Communists, which is this specific organization, I'm not saying the Revolutionary Communists in general. I'm saying in this case, this is a specific organization called this is the Revolutionary Communist Party of Canada. Their brothers in the United States are the Revolutionary Communists of America. They are part of a larger global syndicate called Revolutionary Communism International or something like that. So we're talking about a very specific group when I say this. There are other people who are general revolutionary communists who are not part of this specific group. This specific group of revolutionary communists holds weekend Marxist schools. You guys think that I mean for making you watch a 90-minute video about communism? These people hold entire weekend seminars that people go to spend their weekend learning about the history of communism and the history of revolutions. Okay? So don't tell me I'm too mean for making you watch a 90-minute video, because these people are committing entire fucking weekends to this endeavor and they're paying money to do it. You watch my 90-minute video for free. I don't charge you money. So the point is that education is at the absolute center of what these people do. It's not just a nice to have to read books. They have an entire social ecosystem built around education. Oh yeah, ChatGPT can sum it up for you in 2 minutes. What's the left's definition of capitalism? It's Zach. Go use your ChatGPT to tell me the left's definition of capitalism right now. Let's see how much you know with your ChatGPT. You want to come in here and tell me that ChatGPT can teach you everything you need to know in 2 minutes? What is the left's definition of capitalism? It's Zach. The next thing you're going to say in my chat is either to answer the question, say you don't know, or apologize for even suggesting ChatGPT can teach you everything in a couple of minutes. Those are your 3 options. It's Zach. You do not have the option to not answer this question, because if you do not answer this question in the next 30 seconds, I will permanently ban you from my chat. So in the next 30 seconds, you need to tell me, what is the left's definition of capitalism? Let's see that ChatGPT knowledge, bro. Should be easy. Just one question. It's a real short answer. What is the left's definition of capitalism? You have 30 seconds to answer, or I'm banning you from the chat. We're waiting. We're waiting. It's Zach. You said that ChatGPT could teach you everything you needed to know. What is the left's definition of capitalism? You have 15 seconds. Nope. Wrong. Wrong. Everyone in the chat, shame this man. You had at least a minute and a half to use ChatGPT to come up with the correct answer to a very simple 101 level question, and you could not do that. So Itzhak, shut the fuck up, sit in the back of the class, keep your ears open, and try to actually learn something for once, instead of just assuming you know everything or that ChatGPT can teach you anything on the fly. The chat is filled with the correct answer, which is private property ownership, which none of them learned from ChatGPT, because my chat is smart and don't think that a fucking computer can teach them everything they need to know about an entire ideology within a couple of minutes. So now your job is to shut the fuck up and learn, or get out. Those are your options. Those are your only options. And we shame people who come into my chat and pretend they know everything about everything, when in fact they fucking know nothing. Back to this.
Power in 1917, the Marxists were an extreme minority in the revolutionary movement in Russia. Were non-existent, and the main force were what we call the Narodniks, which did stand for methods of individual terrorism to bring down the Tsarist state. So this is an extremely interesting historical example that I think really sheds light to this question today. You had an incredibly inspiring movement of dozens of youth giving their lives to actually fight Tsarism, and by methods of killing policemen, state officials, and eventually the Tsar himself. So I think if we look at that history, a lot of the lessons of that period are extremely illuminating for the events we see today. So I'll spend a bit of time on that. But yeah, similar to today, actually, if you look at the Russia of the mid-19th century, you find a society in a complete impasse. You have the Tsarist monarchy keeping the population in the grip of this severe repression. You have massive censorship that prevented any openly or covertly revolutionary texts of seeing the light of the day. Even some non-revolutionary novels were censored at the time. And the overwhelming majority of the population, the peasants, were mercilessly oppressed by the Tsarist regime that was surrounded by a clique of nobles and a rising bourgeois. And any attempt at liberal reform had been completely crushed. There had been some sort of uprising by military officials. Liberal-minded people in 1825 completely crushed. The liberals were brutally silenced in the 1840s and the 50s. And there was land reform in 1861.
Hang on. This is actually a fair question. Okay, hang on. I'm not agreeing with the chatter, but can ChatGPT help at all in understanding the left? Okay. I am a big, big fan of AI. I love AI. AI is a godsend for research. I have been putting like transcripts from my videos into AI to train it for like a long time. And there are some things that AI does give actually very good answers on. However, AI also makes a lot of mistakes. So I use AI for my research on the left, especially I've used it very heavily for this Queer Marxism book that I'm writing, because in terms of just being able to like find information when you have a really specific question, it does a fantastic job. And it also is very, very good at helping you to make sense of that information and putting a lot of the pieces together. However, even though I use AI extremely heavily to do my research and to do my analysis of it, it makes mistakes all the time. All the time. And on things that I've taught it too. So like I will teach the AI something and sometimes it gets it right and sometimes it does not get it right. So I think that we are in the infancy of AI. I think that AI is going to evolve and just get like AI is only going to get better and more useful the more like it just exists in the world and people use it and all that. So I'm not trying to dissuade anyone from using AI. I just know because I've done an awful lot of research using it and I really love it and I appreciate it. It makes mistakes all the time. So you literally have to double check everything that AI tells you. Also, I think one of the reasons that I can get AI to work for me is I ask it very, very hyper specific questions because I know the questions to ask. And the only reason I know the questions to ask is because I've been researching and studying this stuff for so long. So I know how to form the prompt correctly so that it gives me the information that I'm looking for. If you are brand new and you have never used AI before, or you just really don't even understand the left all that well, it's going to be a lot harder for you to get a really good answer out of it because you don't know the way to frame the question. You're also not going to be able to identify when is AI getting it right and when it's getting it wrong. So I think it's a really powerful tool. I think it's awesome. I think we should use AI as much as we can possibly use it, but we also have to constantly fact check and constantly be like very careful that it's giving us the correct information. I double fact check everything. Like if I'm doing research, I have like several different AIs that I use. I do some research in one AI and then I take that research and I put it into another AI and I say, fact check this. And sometimes it turns out perfectly and sometimes it just doesn't. Okay. So it really does depend. And I just want people to be like aware that it is very good, but it's not perfect yet by any means.
Which abolished serfdom, but basically changed the chains for other chains. It replaced it basically by crushing payments on the peasants. So nothing had changed, nothing fundamental had changed. So what you see in the 1860s in particular is a young layer, the young generation of the intelligentsia that drew revolutionary socialist conclusion from this impasse. And we're talking here about people like, sons and daughters of priests, state officials, nobles that had been ruined by the reforms. Some of them were. They started to read Hegel. They started to read Feuerbach, other philosophers of that sort. The utopian socialists as well, from the European utopian socialists. And yeah, so this layer became revolutionaries, and they were looking for a way out. And in the 1870s, this revolutionary intelligentsia, they did attempt to mobilize the peasants. They could see, this multi-million mass of people, and they actually took that very seriously. They went to the people. They went, they even disguised as peasants, which seems a bit funny today. But the point was they were trying to go to the people, speak to them, and spark a revolution. And when you think about it, it's there's something quite inspiring to think of these young 20-year-olds dropping out of school, going to the peasants to bring about a revolution.
Hang on, we got a super chat from CEO. It's midnight here, so I gotta go. I'm sending money in anticipation of someone pissing Karlyn off as I sleep. LOL. Hope you have a good stream and the chat behaves. Catch up with you guys tomorrow. Hey, thanks, CEO. I do appreciate that. Have a good night.
But this did not work. The peasants were actually extremely suspicious of anything coming from the cities. So this layer of young people were completely stifled. The peasants did not move. The Tsarist state was this force that really seemed to come from the outside, crushing society. And another important factor is the working class was still a tiny force and did not represent a visible revolutionary force, at least at the time. And it was in this context that the tactic of individual terrorism found fertile ground. And I think what this one thing that it points out that it leads to is the class basis of individual terrorism. And that's the case in all the various epoch where this comes up.
This is one of the most retarded things that you guys do, and you will not do this while you are in my chat. Do you ever notice how leftards can barely lift their own art? This is fucking retarded. Bro, they're winning and you're losing. So you might not like how they look. You might not like that they don't go to the gym as much as you think they should. But they are kicking your ass. They are kicking your ass, white man. They are kicking your ass, and it's not even fucking close. They're indoctrinating your kids in school. They're teaching your kids to cut off parts of their bodies and to pretend that they don't have a fucking gender. They have taken over all of our society. They are going to have a strike in a couple of years where they're going to fucking cripple the economy, and no one is doing anything because you guys are saying, have you ever seen a leftist that actually lift weights? Like, honestly, they're all fucking retarded? They're all fucking retarded? No, bro. You are the retard. You are the retard. You are the fucking problem. People like you, white man, you are the fucking problem because you don't fucking listen. You don't understand what you're talking about. You just run your mouth and go, oh, guys, you want to go to the gym because we don't look like these stupid libtards and we go to the gym and we lift weights. Pinky swear, trust me. It's like, shut the fuck up. No one gives a flying fuck what they look like. No one cares what they look like. We care that they are winning and you retards are losing and you are getting in the way of actually solving any real fucking problems. So shut the fuck up.
It found its basis in petty bourgeois layers of society. And we often say petty bourgeois. It's not an insult. It's not a term of abuse. It's a scientific term. We're talking about this very heterogeneous group of people that generally stand between the rising working class and the capitalist class. And there's various shades to what the petty bourgeois is. But these layers, once or if they draw revolutionary conclusions, are generally more prone to individual methods of action instead of collective struggle. It comes with a certain impatience.
Listen again. Thank you, William. The last super chat. You know what? I really love this new rule we have in the chat where every time I yell, someone sends me money. I really like, we've got to keep this rule up. I never, fuck off. Oh, you fuck off, bro. Permanently banned in the chat. Goodbye. Not smart enough to be here, retard. Get the fuck out. See, people like him, and I promise you he's like a white nationalist because he's got like Odin in his title, and everyone who has Odin in their title is almost always retarded. Like that guy that I just banned, he's one of those people that's going to run around going, white men are going to save us. White men are going to save he doesn't even know what the fuck he's talking about. But you expect me to believe that people like him are going to save me? Please. People like him. He is such a strong, powerful man, guys. That guy I just banned, he's such a strong, powerful man that he had a fucking hissy fit meltdown over a woman yelling at him in an internet chat. You think I believe that guy is going to save me from fuck off anything? Please. Anyway, back to the idea of people sending me money every time I yell. I just think this is a really great idea. And I think it's a new tradition in the chat that every time I yell, like I need to get at least one, if not several super chats, just for yelling at a retard in the chat. Because I know when I yell at retards in the chat, I'm not just yelling for me. I'm not just yelling for me. I am yelling for all of us. I am yelling for everyone in the chat who is tired of retards coming into our space and fucking things up. I am yelling for everyone in the chat who has ever tried to post one of my videos on a conservative influencer's replies. Ban you? Okay, bro. Bye. Bye. Another supposedly strong white man. Another strong white man just got banned in the chat. Another strong white man just got banned in the chat. Guys, I'm not just when I'm yelling at these idiots, I'm not just yelling for me. I'm yelling for all of you that have tried to spread the word about my work for years and had no one listen. I'm yelling for everyone that is tired of a conservative coming into our chat and telling us that they know everything about communism because they saw libs of TikTok on the internet. I'm yelling for everyone that has ever told me that I don't know what I'm talking about because they read a book by Mark Levin or Glenn Beck that one time. I am yelling for all of us in this chat. This is our struggle. This is not me. This is our struggle against the retards of the world that are going to prevent us from defeating the left if we allow them to take over our spaces, okay?
Very heterogeneous group of people that generally stand between the rising working class and the capitalist class. And there's various shades to what the petit bourgeois is, but these layers, once or if they draw revolutionary conclusions, are generally more prone to individual methods of action instead of collective struggle. And it comes with a certain impatience, not waiting or not even looking for a mass base for the struggle. And that was the case in Russia. Faced with the relative calm of the masses, this young layer of revolutionaries were looking for a shortcut to revolution and found it in these individual actions against policemen, state officials, and the rest of it. It was really this idea of doing something now, which is a psychological trait that you see again and again with some revolutionaries. And there's a very interesting example of this, which we discuss in the latest paper, in the article on this, the case of Vera Zasulich. And that is extremely interesting because the parallels with today are striking. She was actually one of these youngsters, coming from a small town, moving to St. Petersburg, being exposed to revolutionary ideas, joining a revolutionary circle in the city. And she became actually one of the most famous terrorists. So yeah, it was in 1878. She basically went to this guy, Trepov, which was the governor of St. Petersburg, shouted, "Revenge," and shot at him, just like in his face. And she was immediately arrested, obviously. She didn't kill him, though. And yeah, when she was asked, why did you do this? She said, for Bogolyubov, which was another guy that had been in prison by the state. He was a political prisoner, and he had been flogged on the order of this guy, Trepov, just for refusing to remove his cap in front of him. So she was just avenging her comrade. It's as simple as that. But actually, at her trial, she explained more why she did that. And the quote is quite illuminating. She said, "I didn't see any other means. It is terrible to raise one's hand against one's fellow man, but I decided that this was what I had to do." And if you've read Luigi Mangione's manifesto, there's a line that is almost identical, where Luigi says, "I do apologize for any strife or traumas, but it had to be done. Frankly, these parasites had it coming." It's the same psychological basis. They're both basically saying, "I'm sorry, but I had to."
So what they're saying, this is actually so funny because of my rant at the beginning about conservatives asking me all the time, like, "Karlyn, what do I do to fight back against the left? What do I do?" And I say the first thing you need to do is shut up and actually sit down and open your ears and learn about what the left is. I usually say it much nicer than that, but sometimes I don't. And so like, and conservatives don't want to do that. They don't want to sit down and learn. They just want to go do something because they're like, I have to do something. They don't think learning is doing something for some reason, although it's the only thing you can actually do that matters. Conservatives are so quick to go and do something that they overlook the greater good of what's going on. and what is required in order to be successful. What he's saying is these silly individual terrorists like Luigi Mangione, he was driven by this desire to do something now rather than work with the group and achieve a greater victory later. He's almost saying, like, maybe not exactly the same thing, but like a very similar thing. Like what they're saying is that people who commit these acts of individual terrorism, they're putting their own individual interests above the interests of the collective. They're putting their own desire to quote unquote do something ahead of what is required to achieve their revolution. That's what he's saying. Does everyone understand that? Got a couple of super chats. We are going to listen to that part again. I need to go back to the super chats. Let me see. Meta Guy, there are U.S. military veteran groups that support Antifa and other far-left groups, so anyone not taking their threats seriously better wake up. Yeah, that's very true. I appreciate that super chat. Pablo, thank you. The people who dismiss the communists are the types who think they can wrestle a bear. Bro, so true. So true. They don't see the danger these groups pose. That's exactly what they are. Like, and I hear this from conservatives all the time. Like, every time I post a new video of a leftist calling to overthrow the government, I get so many replies saying, yeah, let them try to overthrow the government. We're going to take them. And I'm like, you idiots don't even leave your house for anything other than a Trump rally. And you expect me to believe that you're going to go to war with communists? When have conservatives ever left their house for any political activism that was not a Trump rally in the last 10 years? And you expect me to believe that conservatives are going to leave their house to go to civil war against communism? Please. Please. I will believe it when I see it, right-wingers. I will believe it when I see it. I just want to point out that retards make themselves known. So if people went to leftist events, yeah, well, this is also very true. So like a lot of people think what I do with going to leftist events is easy. And in some respects, it is very easy for me because I've been doing this a long time. But the reason that it's easy for me is I understand the left and I know how to act like the left and I know how to talk like the left and I know how the left thinks. Conservatives think they can walk right into a leftist event and just say crazy leftist shit and not be discovered by them. You go ahead and try it, conservatives. You go find an anarchist book fair near you. You go walk into that anarchist book fair. You act like what you've seen on Libs of TikTok, and you see how long it takes you to get kicked out of that book fair. I promise you, it's not going to be very long. Thank you, average person. I appreciate it. All right, listen.
But actually, at her trial, she explained more why she did that. And the quote is quite illuminating. She said, "I didn't see any other means. It is terrible to raise one's hand against one's fellow man, but I decided that this was what I had to do." And if you've read Luigi Mangione's manifesto, there's a line that is almost identical, where Luigi says, "I do apologize for any strife or traumas, but it had to be done. Frankly, these parasites had it coming." It's the same psychological basis. They're both basically saying, "I'm sorry, but I had to." The point I'm trying to get at is,
hey, thanks, Lisa, for becoming a member of the channel. I appreciate it.
This question of the psychological basis of terrorist acts. And actually, that's something Trotsky once said. He said, the most important psychological source of terrorism is always the feeling of revenge in search of an outlet. And that's what millions thought when they saw Luigi Mangione.
Oh, yeah? You don't think a leftist, a psychologist can walk into a leftist rally without being kicked out? I am a psychologist. Literally. My PhD is in psychology. I am an actual literal psychologist. And I go to leftist stuff all the time and have for years and blend right in without getting kicked out. Because I used my psychology degree to learn the left. David, I've seen some of your chats. And you seem to be very confused by all of this. And you know what? If you're new to listening to the left, it's perfectly natural to be confused. We will teach you about the left. This is not word salad. This is not all made up gobbledygook, but you have to learn how to speak their language. If you learn how to speak their language, you will understand the psychology behind what they're doing. We will teach you, but you got to stick around and you have to listen and you have to stop saying it's impossible to understand. It is not impossible to understand, but you need to understand that everything that has ever been told to you about the left is wrong. And you need to go back from the beginning and start from scratch. Otherwise, you're never going to understand them. Okay? Thanks, Rottweiler. Cons think playing Call of Duty, consuming Cheetos and Mountain Dew, masturbating, and being keyboard warriors is training enough to take on Antifa. Not all conservatives think that, Rottweiler. Let's be fair. Not all conservatives are retards. But yeah, there are definitely conservatives who think that. Yeah, 100%.
That we had gotten revenge. And there's so many reasons to want revenge in this sick society that we have today under capitalism. And individual terrorism is the extreme act expressing this desire for revenge.
Yo,
and actually what happened,
yo, hang on. Did you guys just catch that? I was talking, so you may have missed it. They said capitalism causes individual terrorism. What the left believes is that capitalism, which is defined as private property ownership, creates all problems in society. When I say that they believe that capitalism creates all problems, what I mean is they believe capitalism literally creates all problems. They believe that Luigi Mangione only existed as a murderer because capitalism drove him to the point of believing that he needed to do something to fight back against the oppressive force of capitalism by shooting the healthcare CEO. They're saying capitalism causes terrorism. Listen again.
these parasites had it coming. It's the same psychological basis. They're both basically saying, I'm sorry, but I had to. The point I'm trying to get at is this question of the psychological basis of terrorist acts. Actually, that's something Trotsky once said. He said, the most important psychological source of terrorism is always the feeling of revenge in search of an outlet. And that's what millions thought when they saw Luigi Mangione, that we had gotten revenge. And there's so many reasons to want revenge in this sick society that we have today under capitalism. And individual terrorism is the extreme act expressing this desire for revenge. And
individual terrorism is the extreme act of expressing a desire for revenge against this evil capitalist society. That's what they believe. They believe that capitalism as a system creates literal terrorism. They also believe that capitalism as a system is going to literally kill everyone because they believe that capitalism creates climate change and climate change is literally going to kill everyone. They believe that individual terrorism is being used as a manifestation of the angst that the repression of capitalism has caused. They also believe that the only way to end things like terrorism or like climate change is to overthrow the capitalist system. They also believe that the United States government and the United States Constitution was designed specifically to uphold capitalism or private property ownership rights. And therefore, if they believe that capitalism creates terrorism and capitalism is going to very literally kill us all, and their only choice to get around this is to overthrow capitalism, and they believe the United States government upholds capitalism fundamentally at its core, that means they believe the only way to stop terrorism in death is to overthrow the government. This is why I harp so much on what the definition of capitalism is. I'm not just trying to be annoying, although I know it does annoy you guys. The reason that I harp so much on what the definition of capitalism is that once you understand the core definition of capitalism and how they apply that in their train of thought, because I'm explaining to you what the left believes, and whether or not you agree with it doesn't make a difference at all. I am explaining to you what the left believes and what beliefs are driving their behaviors, regardless of if you agree with them. And if they believe that the only way to end terrorism and death is to overthrow the government, people need to understand that, because that is at the core of what they're pushing in our society today. And that is what Antifa is doing, protesting in front of ICE facilities. They are trying to spark the revolution that is going to overthrow the evil capitalist government. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? 1 in the chat if you understand what I'm saying. 2 in the chat if you're still confused. I want to do a pulse of the chat. It's okay to say you're confused, but you need to tell me. Lots of 1s in the chat. Mostly 1s. Okay, looks like people are getting it. So this is why we learn. This is why we pay attention to their language. This is why we pay attention to their definitions. Because if you don't learn and pay attention to their definitions, then you cannot remotely begin to wrap your head around this problem, okay?
Actually, what happened is Vera Zasulich became a hero. Very similar to Mangione today. She was fascinated. She fascinated Europe and America. There were articles about her. Everyone spoke about her. Even Oscar Wilde, who's a writer, the first play he wrote was about Vera Zasulich. And yeah, there were some leaflets in factories describing Zasulich as this fearless girl who did not shrink from the awful bloody deed and her own ruin when no other means remained for her defense of the rights of men. And the flyer said she had shown that the tyrants were not almighty. And the most incredible part of the story, in my opinion, is she was found not guilty, which I have my doubts that that's going to happen to Luigi Mangione. But the point is, yeah, it became a trial of Tsarism, actually. They kind of flipped the table. And it was about this torture, the political prisoners, and all the rest of it. And yeah, she became a symbol of resistance, a hero.
Your job right now is to shut the fuck up and learn. I've already told you this once. I am not going to give you what you do after you learn. Do you know why I'm not going to give you what you do after you learn? Because you will know the answer to this when you sit down and open your ears and stop fucking talking and actually just listen. You will learn what to do in the course of learning their language. The problem is you want a shortcut. You want a shortcut. This is why you came into my chat earlier and said, oh, ChatGPT can teach me all of this in a couple minutes. You want a shortcut. There is no shortcut. There is no cheating this. Learning is all there is. And if you're not willing to sit the fuck down and shut up and open your ears and listen, then you will do everything incorrectly. I can't give you any tactics to do because you do not understand your enemy. If I give you a tactic to do, you are going to fuck it up and make the problem worse. So either sit down and listen and try not to break anything, or leave and go back to TikTok, because there is no shortcut to learning this information.
And what happened is this did give a huge boost to the terrorist movement in Russia. Now, was that a good thing? Well, we'll see in a minute that it was not a good thing. That the wave of terrorism that came, did not overthrow.
Bro, you have been studying the left so in depth that you didn't even know how the left defines capitalism. I get people like you in my chat all the time. Karlyn, I've been watching your content for years and I've been studying the left for so long, and I believe I know everything I need to know, and I believe that you can tell me something to do now. Bro, you didn't even know the left's definition of capitalism 15 minutes ago. Don't tell me you've been studying the left for years. I don't know what the fuck you've been watching, but it's obviously been on TikTok or some other clickbait outrage content. You haven't been studying the left. You've been consuming content that chills a conservative political narrative. That's what you've been doing. And that's why you didn't understand basic 101 level information about how the left defines capitalism. And I promise you, if you had watched my chat for several days, you would have heard me say the left defines capitalism as private property ownership at least once, if not twice, if not every fucking day. You are so full of shit. And because you're full of shit, I am now going to shut you up. Since you obviously don't want to shut the fuck up and sit down and listen, as I've told you several times, no, you are out of time. You are out of time. You are now banned for the rest of the stream. If you come back tomorrow, perhaps you will be able to chat again. But as of right now, you are banned for the rest of the stream, and you will not continue to talk in my chat. If you do not sit the fuck down and shut up, we will shut you up until you fucking figure it out.
Terrorism. And actually, the point is, the more the movement grew, the more it was preparing its destruction. Because in 1879, the main proponents of terrorism coalesced in the group called the Narodnaya Volya, so the Narodniks. The word Narod means people, so it was the people's will. That was the name of the group. So here we have a group that kind of systematized terrorism, believed that continuously disrupting, intimidating the regime, that would be the way to overthrow it. This was a very small movement, actually. The active layer, it was the most exact number, or at least the more precise number I found, was 37 people. It was relatively small, but it did have a big impact. But their political perspective was quite limited. There was actually a Narodnik, the leader, that explained it. It's kind of either an interview or a dialogue with someone else, and the guy said, "History moves too slowly. It needs a push. Otherwise, the whole nation will be rotten and gone to seed before the liberals get anything done." And then he's asked, "What about?"
And by the way, they're complaining about liberals in that. We'll go back and listen to that again, because I want people to hear this is communists complaining about how much liberals suck and how much liberals don't do anything. But I just want to take this chat. I want to show this to you guys. If I didn't despise them, I would almost admire them. They really study history and even poetic writings on their ideology. It's wild. Yeah. Wait until you start reading some of their anarchist stuff. Wait until you see the language that they use in their anarchist stuff, because the anarchist stuff, you want to know why so many young people are getting recruited and radicalized to the far left? It's because their anarchist content blows your fucking hair back. It's really interesting to read. It's terrifying and dystopian, but it's the kind of stuff that when you're a young person, you want to read that stuff that blows your hair back. You don't want to read boring conservative propaganda and nonsense and all that stuff. You want to read the stuff that blows your hair back. And so when you really get into it, their writings in those communities are way crazy. And you know what? I've said this before. I do have a respect and admiration for how hard the left works. I wish people on our side worked this hard. You know, people on our side, they want to make fun of the left. They say, oh, they don't have jobs. They don't do this. Like, bullshit. Bullshit. Not only do the left have jobs, the left controls the entire labor organizing apparatus, and they do additional volunteering and organizing on top of that. And it's like, if we could get people on our side to work, I cannot even get people on our side to sit down and watch a 90-minute video without complaining and whining that it's too much and it's too hard and they don't want to. The left is not only working these full-time jobs, they're working as union organizers, they're working as organizers of these protests, they're out there doing Black Bloc and Antifa. You guys think Antifa is paying them to go and do Black Bloc and go try to terrorize ICE facilities? I promise you they're not. The left works so much harder than the right, it's not even funny. And you know what? I look at what they do and I'm like, you know what? Good game. Good game, leftists. Good game. You won, we lost because you played the game better than we did. You worked harder than we did. You want to talk about a meritocracy? The left actually believes in meritocracy more than the right does. What I mean by that is the right claims to care about meritocracy, and then all they do is elevate the most stupid, ridiculous people who don't actually do the work to understand anything about the left. The right does not believe in meritocracy. Most of the influencers on the right are low IQ retards who were failed actors and comedians. That's not meritocratic. The left actually believes in meritocracy more because they show up, they work hard, they educate themselves, they're reading all the time, they're creating fun social ecosystems to be in, they're writing things that blow your hair back, they have leftist bands, they have leftist bookstores, they have leftist book publishers, they're organized. It's like you go on and on and on and on and on. It's like, okay, leftists, good game. You played the game better than we did, and that's why you're winning.
The guy said, history moves too slowly. It needs a push. Otherwise, the whole nation will be rotten and gone to seed before the liberals get anything done. And then he's asked, what about a constitution? He said, all to the good. Well, what do you want? To work for a constitution or to give history a push? I'm not joking. Just now, we want to give history a push. So they were kind of fighting for a liberal constitution by more extreme methods than the liberals. It's not for nothing that the Marxists would call them liberals with a bomb, which kind of express what this current meant. I might come back to this later if I have time. But yeah, in 1881, actually, the Narodniks pulled off the biggest feat imaginable because they killed the Tsar himself. What more could you ask of them? They killed the guy, which was an incredible feat. But what was the result of that? Well, the result was to usher a period of complete political reaction. Because, yeah, the successor to the Tsar, Alexander III, stopped any hint of liberal.
Oh, they do this all the time. They do this all the time. They're hoping to trip me up. They're hoping to catch me. They're hoping to say that I'm going to say something violent when I'm not. They're hoping to make me stumble. They ask me the same question in all these different ways, trying to get me to say something different. The problem that those people are going to find out is I am the most consistent bitch on the internet. I am the most consistent bitch that you will find on all of YouTube. If you go back for years, I have always said pretty much exactly the same thing. And I've said it over and over and over again. And I've gotten very good at identifying people who are just coming into the chat and they're trying to ask me the same question in like 3 or 4 different ways. And they don't shut the fuck up when they're given an answer because they're trying to trick me up. This happens all the time.
Form. His father had been a bit more lax, to put it that way. He deprived the universities of their autonomy. They even started to ban more books. The books of Spinoza, Voltaire, Hobbes. Jewish pogroms became widespread. And the terrorists were mercilessly crushed. You got 5 of them hanged for the assassination. Others were sent to prison and exile. And actually, the assassination of the Tsar was the beginning of the end for the terrorist movement. It completely destroyed it, because also the masses did not move. It did not arouse any revolt among the peasantry nor among the rising working class. And in this context of complete isolation, they were completely crushed. And actually, I could, if you say that, if you want the last peak, it was not the peak, actually, it was probably the low point of the movement, it was a few years later in 1887 when there was a completely botched attempt on the life of the Tsar. Led by a young man called Alexander Ulyanov, which is the brother of Lenin. And he was hanged, actually, for this botched attempt with 4 other comrades. But in court, Ulyanov said the following, which I think is really interesting for the topic. He said the following. He said, "We have no strongly grouped class that could hold back the government. At the same time, our intelligentsia is physically so weak and unorganized that at present it cannot engage in open struggle. The weak intelligentsia, very dimly penetrated by the interests of the masses, can only defend its right to social thought in the form of terrorism," which I think, again, highlights the psychology behind these terrorist actions.
Charlie Kirk was not talking to communists and socialists. Charlie Kirk was talking to stupid college students. There is no reality in which Charlie Kirk was talking to real communists and socialists. And so if you think that's what he was doing, I don't really know what to tell you, but that is just like not the case at all.
It's a cry of despair in a situation where you either don't see or don't understand the need. You think.
And by the way, I think that what Charlie Kirk was doing in terms of those campus things, I think they were noble to a certain extent. I also think he was just trying to get video of himself owning the libs because it makes good clickbait content on the internet. I don't like the owning of the lib stuff, but I will say that I do think having conversations and remaining calm as you're having those conversations, I think it was probably an overall net positive. I love the fact that Steven Crowder is bringing back his Change My Mind series. I like the fact, even though I don't personally like Turning Point USA, and my position on that has not changed. I think that Turning Point USA in general is like an Israel front group. So I do not, and listen, this might be an unpopular thing. I do not support Turning Point USA. I'm very sad that Charlie Kirk died. That should never have happened. But just because I'm sad about Charlie Kirk dying, and especially in the way he did, does not mean that I support Turning Point USA. today because I just don't. I don't align with them politically. I also don't align with their support for Israel at all. But I think what they're doing with having events on college campuses where they are expressing dissident ideas or what's going to be a dissident idea in that environment, I think it is a net positive, okay? So I'm not suggesting that what Charlie Kirk was doing is not like a net positive. What I am saying is he was not talking to socialists and communists. He was talking to like, you know, regular kind of lefty college students that really don't know shit about shit. Oh yeah? Guess what? Oh, you're saying fuck Israel. Okay. I thought you were pro-Israel. Hang on. Listen. And by the way, you are allowed to support Israel in my chat, but you're not allowed to be a dick. So I thought you were pro-Israel for a second. I was going to ban you, but I don't think you are. I think you're telling Israel to go fuck itself. And that's okay. You can totally tell Israel to go fuck itself. I don't mind if you do that at all. But pro-Israel people are allowed to be here, and I want to make that clear. I don't want people to think that if you like, I truly don't care if you support Israel. I just find that I find people who support Israel sometimes are rather mouthy about the fact that they support Israel, and sometimes they don't like the fact that I don't support Israel, and then they start having a hissy fit, and then they start calling me names and all that. Yeah, it was a hair trigger moment. Yeah, well, we reined it in. Yep, we reined it in. Okay, we're good. We made it. I'm just saying, as long as you don't want to lecture me about not supporting Israel, you're allowed to be here. That's it.
Mass action is not possible, rightly or wrongly, and that's the psychology behind terrorist actions, and that's the irony of the thing, that actually the more successful individual terrorism is, the more widespread it becomes, the more harmful are the consequences, because that's the thing. They killed the Tsar, and it only crushed the movement actually. And it did not spark a mass.
Okay, we're going to start listening more to this speech in a second because he's actually talking about a lot of violence. I just want to say, I cannot with this fucking kid, this Brylin guy, or however you pronounce his name. Like, why is this kid a thing? Does everyone know who I'm talking about? It's this like 19-year-old conservative from Arkansas who's just like he's like that. He's like boy band. Like he's like a Democrat clone. You guys know those like those Democrat boys? Yeah. Like it's like they took the worst part of the Democrats and they made a Republican out of it. And I'm just like, yeah, like golden retriever. Exactly. It's just like, I'm like, oh, so gay, so fake, so gay, so fucking cringe. Why are they doing this to us? Why? Why does the GOP constantly have to make the worst possible decision at like every turn? Every fucking turn. The Republicans will always and forever make the worst possible bullshit, fake and gay decision that they can possibly make. I heard this kid was on Dave Rubin. I saw a screenshot of this kid with Dave Rubin, and Dave Rubin looked like he was going to eat him. And I was like, this is the conservative right? I was like, no! He's like the Republican Harry Sisson. Yes, that's exactly right. He is the Republican Harry Sisson. Yeah. Yeah. You guys think I think he's going to defeat the left? You guys think I think that fucking kid is going to be the answer to defeating the left? All right. Everyone refocus. We are paying attention to the terrorism lecture. Is everyone paying attention? We are watching a terrorism lecture. Everyone focus.
This movement, it did not hasten the overthrow of the Tsarist regime. The only thing it did is it destroyed a generation of courageous and sincere activists. But obviously, you probably know that this experience did not pass without a trace, and the best people learned the lessons and actually moved to Marxism, quite literally, actually, because the first Marxist group in Russia was founded by 3 people, and 2 of them were ex-Narodniks. That's Plekhanov, who's one of the most famous Marxists of that epoch, and Vera Zasulich herself, who became a Marxist and rejected openly the methods of terrorism. But it wasn't that easy, actually, because the Narodniks were few in numbers. But they had a big influence on this layer of youth looking for revolution. And they had to wage an ideological battle against terrorism. And I don't know if you know that, but even Lenin himself, for reasons I think are quite understandable, for a long while was skeptical about rejecting terrorism outright. It took him some time to really be won over to Marxism. So it was a strong tradition that had support in the youth, even though it was getting crushed. And even at the time, the Marxists were starting to argue against this. They were even a bit soft, actually, and they tried to publish the texts about Marxist philosophy, the role of the working class, and all of that. And they were accused of being not revolutionaries, but students of sociology, actually, which is a quite interesting quote, a quite interesting accusation against the Marxists of those days, which, by the way, we're talking about very few people, a very embryonic Marxist movement. But this thing about, oh, you're not revolutionaries, but sociologists, how many times have we heard that about the RCP? I've heard it many, many times. And when I joined, that's what people said. Oh, you're just a book club and we should do stuff. And this question of terrorism, actually, it is broader than just political assassination. I don't think we should narrow it to that only. Because when we talk about the psychology...
What? I'm sorry. Terrorism is broader than just political assassination. We shouldn't just narrow our terrorism to political assassination, guys. That's just, guys, limiting our terrorism to political assassination, so limiting. It cuts off so many options for other forms of terrorism. Again, please.
And this question of terrorism, actually, it is broader than just political assassination. I don't think we should narrow it to that only. Because when we talk about the psychology to do something now, you see it express itself in various ways. And one of them is these, I guess you could say, a lower level individual action to disrupt. And you see it in Montreal, there was that all the time in the past. Like in demos, you would always have a group of anarchists throw rocks at the police cars, or at the banks, or the police station, or what have you. It was a big thing, But broadly speaking, it's the same method and the same psychology, these individual actions to disrupt the regime. I remember actually one time in Montreal overhearing a conversation in a bookstore.
Look, did you hear him say it? Terrorism, if we're just doing political assassinations, that's very limiting for our terrorism. We need to have bigger actions that disrupt the regime. The goal is disrupting the regime. Okay? Listen again to what he just said.
Anarchist throw rocks at the police cars, or at the banks, or the police station, or what have you. It was a big thing, But broadly speaking, it's the same method and the same psychology, these individual actions to disrupt the regime. I remember actually one time in Montreal overhearing a conversation in a bookstore. It was the anarchist bookstore, so
shocking!
It was the right place to hear that. But there was two of them talking.
So it was an anarchist bookstore where they were talking about doing terrorist actions to disrupt the regime. Tell us more. We have those bookstores in the United States too, guys.
Method and the same psychology, these individual actions to disrupt the regime. I remember actually one time in Montreal overhearing a conversation in a bookstore. It was the anarchist bookstore, so it was the right place to hear that. But there was two of them talking, and one of them was like, "Oh yeah, we have to make the police attack demos because that will show their role and discredit them in the eyes of people." So you see this idea of wanting to be a spark to a movement, but the reaction is invariably the same. It does not actually strengthen the movement or expose the police, maybe a bit, but it actually gives a pretext to the police to attack demos, to repress people.
So if you are engaging in acts of individual terrorism, where you are throwing rocks at the police or doing things like that, that might feel good in the moment, but in reality, you're just giving the police an excuse to behave in more repressive behaviors, which is ultimately bad in regards to the broader proletarian uprising. I'm explaining what they believe. I'm not saying what I believe. I'm trying to break down what they're saying. Does everyone understand that? The argument against individual terrorism is not the terrorism. It's if you're going on your own and you're throwing rocks at a building or you're throwing rocks at a police car, maybe you set a police car on fire, maybe you even murder a CEO. If you're doing all of these things on your own, that might feel good in the moment and it might feel like you're fighting back against the oppressive capitalist system, but in reality, you're giving them a way to respond to repress us further within the capitalist system because you just did it on your own outside of the collective. Does everyone understand? Let me grab this super chat. Chaos Magic Show, thank you. Dr. Borysenko, but I guess Miss is fine. If commenting comment the people dislike individual action, please give me your analysis and their opinion of John Lyons, who attempted. They don't care about. Listen, the left doesn't care about Nick Fuentes. The right is far more obsessed with Nick Fuentes than the left is. The left might know he exists, and I'm talking about the far left right now. I'm not talking about Democrats or liberals or Media Matters or any of that stuff. I'm talking about the far left. And listen, I adore Nick Fuentes. We are Nick Fuentes respecters on this channel. I never hear Nick Fuentes talked about on the far left. Never. And so I don't really think, and by the way, they weren't talking about Charlie Kirk before he died either. So they were only interested in Charlie Kirk because of the manner in which he died, but they weren't talking about him before that. The right is far more obsessed with Nick Fuentes. So I have never heard anyone on the left say anything about the attempted assassination of Nick Fuentes. I also really haven't heard many people on the right talk about it because the right are trying their best to gatekeep Nick Fuentes with all of their might, but Nick is going to win eventually, and Nick already is winning. He's like the most relevant thing going on the right now. But yeah, I've never heard them express an opinion on that.
It actually gives ammunition to the bourgeois propaganda that demonstrators are just violent thugs, etc., etc. And actually, ever since 2012 in Quebec, in which there was a lot of that, there isn't a single radical demo in Montreal where you don't have hundreds of riot cops present.
So look, they brought out many more riot cops to every demonstration because of an individual act of terrorism. Adam, thank you. What is a collective enough action to satisfy their criteria? I'm not sure, Adam. Maybe they will tell us in the course of this presentation. But certainly it's not going to be an individual acting on their own, right?
And I mean, to be perfectly clear, we do absolutely reject the utter hypocrisy of these people when they attack demos and young people for being violent. There was a lot of that during the Palestine movement and the student strike day that we had. We do reject that. But that being said, the method of small groups going to throw rocks at the police is not the methods of mass action that we need. But the point is also these debates we've had, or these questions that have been raised in the movement in Montreal or elsewhere, it's very similar, actually, the debate between individual action right now or the need to patiently build a group with clear ideas to bring to the masses. And actually, even just the idea that only the masses, the mass movement, that is the best method of struggle. So this was what we saw at the times of the birth of the Russian Marxist movement. And to their credit, they stood their ground. They built a Marxist nucleus in the Russian workers' movement. They were mostly in exile for a long while. But this also, the rise of Marxism and you could say the decline of the individual terrorist movement coincided with something else, which was the rise of the working class in Russia, which was also demonstrating in practice that the Marxist ideas were right, actually.
So guys, as individual terrorism went down, the rise of the working class and the proletarian revolution increased in Russia. This is the history that they've learned through their classes.
And that's what the Marxists eventually that was also one of the reasons Marxism planted deep roots in Russia. So yeah, the Marxists patiently argued for the need for revolutionaries to work patiently to win over the workers and not just excite them with terrorist actions, that there was no substitute to the struggle of the workers themselves. Because actually, that's what it was for the Narodniks, ultimately, a substitute to the mass struggle. Actually, I have another quote here by a Narodnik. He said the following: because of the arbitrary conduct and violence of the government, no activity at all is possible on behalf of the people. In consequence, for every vanguard activist, it is necessary, first and foremost, to put an end to the present system of government and to struggle against it. There is no other means than to do it with arms in hand. So that shows the lack of confidence in the masses, that they say, oh, the government is too strong. There's no action by the people that is possible. But there was no shortcut. It would have to be a patient struggle to win over the nascent working class and mobilize it and the peasantry in a mass movement. And I think it's fair to say that history has delivered its verdict on this question. Because as the Narodnik movement died out, the small court of Marxists became the Russian Social Democratic Labor Party, founded on Marxist foundations. There was the split of the Bolsheviks and Mensheviks in 1903, and the Bolshevik revolutionary wing took a decade and a half to build its forces and take power. Obviously, there's a lot more to it, but I don't have time to do it justice. But that's, I think.
Hang on. Furry Bear says there's some ICE protest shit on YouTube right now. Okay, Furry Bear, what I'll do is I will get Status Quo News up and I will put the ICE protest footage up here so we can kind of monitor it. I do want to keep this lecture playing, and this is something that we can do now, guys. So if you guys see live protest coverage happening while I'm on stream or something, I can put that kind of in the screen up here so we can keep an eye on it, because I think we're going to be dealing with this for a while. Forgive me, Dr. Boris. Oh, no. Oh, God. I'm only kidding. Okay, listen, you don't actually have to call me doctor unless you do something to piss me off. I was totally kidding, bro. I was totally kidding. I do appreciate the super chat, but I was totally kidding. Anyway, let me go get that other footage and you guys listen to this.
History has rendered its verdict, and the Marxists actually won the masses not by individual stunts or direct action, but by channeling the collective struggle of the working class towards the overthrow of the leftovers of the Tsarist regime and of capitalism itself in Russia. And to be sure, actually, the Marxists always considered the Narodniks heroes in their own right, selfless people. But the question was, what methods would lead to victory and what methods would lead to bad consequences and results for the class struggle? And that's the whole point. So there's a lot more to say, but I think what I've tried to highlight here is the basis for terrorism and such individual action. It comes from this impatience, this desire for revenge when you don't see an outlet or don't want to see it or can't see it. It comes generally from this layer, petty bourgeois layer, that don't understand or cannot understand the need for mass action. One thing I would say, obviously, there's a big difference between the Narodniks and Luigi Mangione. The difference is that one was actually a political movement with certain ideas, mistaken, but Luigi Mangione is not part of a broader movement as far as we know. And actually, I would argue that the fact that he's somewhat not politically affiliated means that anyone can identify with him. So there are differences, but the psychology and the class basis is somewhat very similar. And you saw that many times in history, that some layers go through these same methods and have to draw the same lessons painfully. And you have it here in Canada, actually. And I'm thinking, obviously, of the FLQ in Quebec, the Front de Libération du Québec. We have an excellent article on the website on this question of the October crisis of 1970. And I think it's worth going over it a bit here, because this was actually, a period of massive radicalization of the Quebec working class in particular. There were big mobilizations, strikes. And
I want to demonstrate what I'm talking about when I say conservative retards. So I posted a video, and we talked about this yesterday on stream, where Antifa has been telling people they are going to attack the Trump administration. They are literally telling people this. They are not shy about this. They are not covert about this. They talk about this all the time. And they were literally publishing articles. Sorry, I'm trying to move my screen around a little bit. They were literally publishing articles telling people they were going to attack ICE facilities like a week ago. And the Trump administration did nothing. I talked about this yesterday on stream. I posted a clip about it earlier today. Let me read you some of the conservative retard comments. Look, we're watching the protest up there that's happening right now. Here are some of the conservative retard comments. You need to understand that the National Guard can't mobilize that quickly. You're too young and inexperienced to understand matters of war. Trump knows everything. You know nothing. Who are you to judge Trump? Maybe Trump knows more than you do. Why do you think the government doesn't know what's going on? And don't you think that they have a long... It's like my comments are literally filled with this right now. I'm like, too young, too young. I'm 44 fucking years old. How old do I have to be exactly? I'm old enough to be president by almost 10 years. How old do I have to be exactly, conservatives, to understand that almost 0 fucking people were arrested in Chicago or Portland over the weekend, even though there were mass demonstrations around ICE facilities and they were posting on the internet that they're going to attack the ICE facilities until they burn them down? How old do I have to be, conservatives? Obviously, I'm 29. That's obviously true. I think the thing I personally fear about the far left is their patience and discipline. These are key traits. Yup. Very true. Okay. Let's keep going. We're going to continue to listen to this lecture and monitor protest coverage at exactly the same time.
It did coincide. It went together with the national awakening of the Quebecois people. And it's fair to say that in the 50s and 60s, the class question and the national question were deeply intertwined. And the FLQ was founded in that period in 1963. And they actually started by, small cells of the FLQ bombing mailboxes, public spaces. They even sometimes bomb workplaces in support of strikes or near the boss's office or stuff like that. And fighting primarily, I would say, definitely the thing that brought them together was the question of Quebec independence. And some of them were socialists, some of them were less socialist, but they talked generally about liberating the Quebec working class. So not a homogeneous group by any means. But then obviously the biggest action came in 1970 in October when they kidnapped a British diplomat, and more importantly, kidnapped a Quebec Liberal minister of the Quebec provincial government. And it's an incredible story when you start to read about it. They actually forced them to broadcast their manifesto on Radio Canada in exchange for liberating one of the hostages. And student strikes erupted in support for the FLQ, actually. And you had 3,000 people packed in an...
That is in Chicago, by the way, for people who can't tell. That is protest footage out of Chicago.
Arena chanting FLQ, FLQ. There was a mood, but it was very short-lived. Because actually the kidnappings became the perfect pretext for the federal government to crack down on the whole nationalist movement and the left. And then came the news that the Liberal minister had been killed, had died while he was kidnapped. And that was a big shock. And there's polls and anecdotal evidence that show that although the general population in Quebec actually supported the spirit of the organization's demands, like liberation and all of that, they rejected the methods, actually. But if you look at what was the logic behind these actions? Well, I'll tell you a quote that is actually from Charles Gagnon, who was in the FLQ. He then founded a Maoist group in the 70s. So he was a Marxist. He had a funny evolution, but at the time he said, the Quebec people are angry. All that is missing is the spark to ignite it. And it is precisely the role of the revolutionary vanguard, a role to light that spark. It is necessary
Okay. If you guys want to know what Antifa's doing right now, this is what Antifa's doing right now. Literally what he just said. The reason they're doing stuff like this protest, and these protesters look more like immigrant rights protesters to me. I'm not saying Antifa's not in this march. I think that they probably are. They're wearing more plain clothes. Antifa's not going to be dressed as Black Bloc in this. They're going to be wearing just like normal clothes like everyone else. But to me, this looks like immigrant rights groups. So that's, I think, who's protesting, probably around the unions as well. But what I want people to understand is what he just said in this training is that the job of people like this is to light the spark of the revolution. That is what Antifa is doing. They're trying to light the spark of the revolution. Listen again.
He had a funny evolution, but at the time he said, the Quebec people are angry. All that is missing is the spark to ignite it. And it is precisely the role of the revolutionary vanguard, a role to light that spark.
It is the role of the revolutionary vanguard to light the spark of the revolution that will result in the proletarian uprising so that they can recreate the Russian Revolution in the United States. Listen again.
He was a Marxist. He he had a funny evolution, but at the time he said, the Quebec people are angry. All that is missing is the spark to ignite it. And it is precisely the role of the revolutionary vanguard, our role to light that spark. It is necessary to set fire everywhere in Quebec. We must speak words of fire, perform acts of fire, and multiply them. So again, you see this idea that the masses need a spark to enter into struggle. And this did not happen.
The masses need a spark to enter into struggle, to enter into rebellion, to enter into the uprising, to enter into the revolution. Sorry, we got to listen to that again. Sorry, listen.
And it is precisely the role of the revolutionary vanguard, our role to light that spark. It is necessary to set fire everywhere in Quebec. We must speak words of fire, perform acts of fire.
I missed that the first time. It's necessary to light fire in every part of Quebec. They're not saying physical fire, but they're kind of saying physical fire.
And it is precisely the role of the revolutionary vanguard, our role to light that spark. It is necessary to set fire everywhere in Quebec. We must speak words of fire, perform acts of fire, and multiply them. So again, you see this idea that the masses need a spark to enter into struggle. And this did not happen.
Yes. Precisely, Andrea. This is what they were trying to do with George Floyd. This is why they call the George Floyd, the BLM riots of 2020, they call it the George Floyd uprising or the George Floyd revolution. And they got their way for a while. The George Floyd was like a little bit of a test run for them. It's not that they necessarily thought it was going to lead to like the total revolution, but they were definitely pushing as far as they could to light the spark to create as much of a mass uprising as possible.
This this big stunt by the FLQ did not lead to a mass uprising of the workers. Actually, it led to a big crackdown and a temporary setback for the movement in 1970. But ironically, 2 years later, you had the Quebec Common Front, which is the biggest general strike in Quebec history. And where were the FLQ activists? In prison or exile, nowhere to be found, nowhere to be found to help the movement. So we see the same lessons again and again repeated through history. But what does that mean? Does that mean that Marxists reject violence in general? That is not what this means. It's not what it means at all.
Does this mean that because we reject individual terrorism that Marxists reject violence in general? No, that's not what it means at all, according to the Marxist.
But what does that mean? Does that mean that Marxists reject violence in general? That is not what this means. It's not what it means at all. Because, no, actually, if you pause to think about it, just for a minute, who in their right mind rejects violence in general? Seriously.
Oh, yeah?
Like you see a kid about to get stabbed. Do you do nothing because you don't want to be violent to the person, about to do something very bad? If you're robbed in the middle of the night and beaten up, do you not do anything in return,
Guys, if you have violence enacted on you, why would you reject violence? We have to use violence when violence is enacted on us. Now, remember that these people believe that capitalism as a system is enacting literal violence on them. Okay? When he's talking about violence, he's not necessarily talking about being punched in the face. They believe, and he has said this earlier in the presentation, capitalism causes terrorism. Capitalism causes death. Capitalism causes all crime. Capitalism causes violence. Capitalism as a system is violence. So if capitalism exists in their minds, then they are justified in using violence to overthrow capitalism because the system of capitalism itself is inherently violent. So he's not saying, listen, guys, we need to use violence to defend ourselves in case someone punches us in the face or pulls a knife on us or anything like that. Of course, they believe that too. But what he's really getting at is capitalism itself is violence, and therefore we are always justified in using violence to overthrow capitalism. Does everyone understand?
Who in their right mind rejects violence in general? Seriously. Like you see a kid about to get stabbed. Do you do nothing because you don't want to be violent to the person, about to do something very bad? If you're robbed in the middle of the night and beaten up, do you not do anything in return. When a slave owner beats up slaves, are they not allowed to resist? No one actually is against violence in general. Everybody understands that there's a reason why these clashes and conflicts erupt in a society like ours. And actually, the capitalists have shown again and again that they will be violent against the working class trying to change society.
Oh, yeah?
And the working class needs to be prepared to defend itself.
The capitalists are inherently violent against the working class. The capitalists will do violence against the working class in order to maintain their control of society. And therefore, the working class proletarians are perfectly justified in using violence to overthrow the system. Does everyone understand? Adam, thanks for the super chat. I was a captain in the Palisades fire. I'm sorry to hear that. That must have been quite an experience. They were on e-bikes in Black Bloc committing arson in evacuation zones. That's crazy, Adam. I hadn't heard that before. Thanks for that super chat. Listen.
Of the night and beaten up, do you not do anything in return? When a slave owner beats up slaves, are they not allowed to resist? No one actually is against violence in general. Everybody understands that there's a reason why these clashes and conflicts erupt in a society like ours. And actually, the capitalists have shown again and again that they will be violent against the working class trying to change society. And the working class needs to be prepared to defend itself. And a socialist revolution would have to take steps to defend itself against the violent capitalist minority. Otherwise, you might just give up now. And actually, on this question of even individual actions, I don't have time for a lot of details, but it is also a contextual question in the sense that actually, I'll just say exactly what I mean. In the 1905 revolution in Russia, this question came up of like individual like bank robbings or individual actions. But it was different because it was part of a mass movement that was already happening and actions to help and assist the movement. And you also had, political killings during the Russian Civil War, for example. But that was different. It was a mass struggle and mass scale with no holds barred on any side. So obviously that's very different. But on the question of violence, our view has nothing to do with the worthless morality, the hypocritical morality of the ruling class. And we should obviously understand that the real terrorism, the real violence comes from the state in all its various forms. And we do reject...
When he says the state, he means capitalism because he believes that capitalism and the state are inextricably linked. Okay?
Class. And we should obviously understand that the real terrorism, the real violence comes from the state in all its various forms. And we do reject the bourgeois morality of the ruling class, but we adopt a class morality. And that's how we look at the question of violence, the question of tactics in general, actually. And all questions, we look at it from the angle of what benefits the class struggle and strengthens the working class. This is our yardstick to judge individual terrorism and other things. So yes, we are on the side of the millions of people that saw in Luigi Mangione an act that expressed their anger. But that being said, I think it's quite obvious when you think about it that this is not how you end capitalism or the violence that CEO impose in all sorts of ways. Actually,
this is not how you end capitalism. Individual terrorism, what he's saying is individual terrorism is not how you end capitalism. We want to end all the violence, not just some violence. We want to end all the violence. Listen again.
We are on this of what benefits in general, actually, and all questions.
Hang on, we need to go back a little bit more. He's going to say something to the effect. I want people to listen to this. I want you to know what it sounds like. He is going to say something to the effect of individual terrorism is not the solution to ending capitalism. Killing a single CEO is not going to end capitalism.
How we look at the question of violence, the question of tactics in general, actually, and all questions. We look at it from the angle of what benefits the class struggle and strengthens the working class. This is our yardstick to judge individual terrorism and other things. So yes, we are on the side of the millions of people that saw in Luigi Mangione an act that expressed their anger. But But that being said, I think it's quite obvious when you think about it that this is not how you end capitalism or or the violence that CEO impose in all sorts of ways. Actually, there were some news stories that came out. They the CEO died, and United Health is still this crooked, corrupt, disgusting company. Actually,
Luigi killed the CEO of that insurance company, and the insurance company still sucks. And the insurance company just kept being a crooked insurance company. So this individual act of terrorism, killing a CEO, it didn't actually change anything. You guys understand?
this is not how you end capitalism or or the violence that CEO impose in all sorts of ways. Actually, there were some news stories that came out. The CEO died, and United Health is still this crooked, corrupt, disgusting company. Actually, there was a story I was reading in the Guardian where they apparently they called a surgeon during the surgery of a woman that had cancer to ask if she really needed the surgery. This is the stuff. This is not about individuals. And actually, we're not talking about, when we talk about the capitalist system, it is not based on crooked individuals. There's a lot of them, but it's based on a class, and a class doesn't disappear one individual at a time. That is not how you overthrow the power of a ruling class. And yeah, Luigi Mangione was not part of a Narodnik type movement, as far as we know. But we can think of, if these acts were multiplied, which is possible, by the way, you could have copycat actions of the sort. If it was multiplied, I don't think we would see the same reaction. Actually, the more you would have it, the more you would have a rise in state repression, similar to what you saw over 100 years ago. As I said, the more individual terrorism works, quote unquote, the more counterproductive it is. The more it invites state repression without getting anything in return. And this has been the case anywhere that individual terrorism has taken a massive scale. The individual assassinated is just replaced, and the system generally stays the same. So, and there's another more, I guess, broader point about individual terrorism. It's related to the question of the working class and the masses, that while terrorism...
Hang on, we do have a super chat from Sam. Thank you, Sam. So I understand Luigi was not going to overthrow capitalism, but isn't it possible spark they were wanting? What he's telling you is that all throughout history, the spark has never come from an act of individual terrorism. It's come from an act of collective action. And so what they believe, and again, I'm not saying what I believe, I'm saying what they believe. What they believe is that an individual act of terrorism might take out a really bad guy, like the insurance company's CEO, but it's not going to be the thing that actually ultimately pushes the revolution, because in order to push the revolution, you have to have the collective at the forefront of your thoughts. And they're saying that, listen, we've analyzed all the history on this, and when acts of individual terrorism go down, acts of collective action go up. So what he's saying is that it's not that they're opposed to Luigi's actions in particular, but they would have preferred that it be done as more of a collective act, because that's what's going to be more likely to light the spark of the revolution. Now, that's not to say that in reality, an individual action couldn't do that. Of course it could. You can take the George Floyd, for instance. George Floyd was not George Floyd dying at the hands of, like, however that happened, whether you believe it's a fentanyl overdose or something else, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter how George Floyd died in the context of this example. What matters is that their George Floyd rebellion or George Floyd uprising was sparked by the death of one person. So what they believe is that it's more likely to happen collectively. That's not to say that just in reality, it could happen individually. So we always have to separate, guys. We always have to compartmentalize. And this is just bigger picture if you want to understand the far left. We always have to compartmentalize what the left believes is true from how things work in reality. Because what the left believes is true is not necessarily hinged into reality. But the reason we need to compartmentalize out what the left believes is true, regardless of whether or not we agree with it, is the left is taking actions based on what they believe is true, not what is hinged into reality. So your question is like more about like, okay, just hinging into reality for a second. Couldn't this happen? Yeah, sure it could. But we are not operating off of could this happen in any sort of spirit realm or multidimensional thing. We are hinging into what does the left believe is true, because what they believe is true is going to elicit their actions in the real world. Does that make sense, Sam? Hope it does.
Sometimes enjoy the passive support of a majority or many people. It belittles the role of the masses. What conclusion do you draw from a successful terrorist act? That strikes are not necessary, that mass mobilization is not necessary. And that is something you see time and time again. Actually, there's a very interesting article we have on the website called Palestine on the Tactics of the Intifada, which I recommend comrades to read. It was a Palestine group that wrote to us and talking about the struggle. It was in the second Intifada, and talking about how they had no choice but to perform these acts of bombings inside Israel and all of that. And the editorial board of Marxist.com replied, and the reply is very interesting. I really recommend comrades read it. But there's this part about that talks about Marx's view on terrorism. I didn't have time to really talk about that, but that question also came up in the days of Marx and Engels. Namely, that was the movement of the Fenians in Ireland. The Fenians were, if you want, definitely the most courageous, selfless, and radical wing of the Irish liberation movement. And actually, a lot of them were made political prisoners, and one of their methods was these bombings, which they performed. And actually, the First International, they did have a campaign to defend the Irish political prisoners. But that being said, Marx and Engels were extremely critical of the actions, the methods of the Fenians. Actually, there's this exchange of letters between Marx and Engels where the Fenians had bombed, where was it? Doesn't matter. It was in London. They bombed the place, and there was 120 people wounded, and a big anti-Irish mood developed. And Marx said the following. He said, "The last exploits of the Fenians in Clerkenwell was a very stupid thing. The London masses, who have shown great sympathy for Ireland, will be made wild by it and driven into the arms of the government party. There is always a kind of fatality. One cannot expect the London proletariat to allow themselves to be blown up in honor of the Fenian emissaries. There is always a kind of fatality about such a secret, melodramatic sort of conspiracy." And Engels responded to Marx a few days later. He said, "The stupid affair in Clerkenwell was obviously the work of a few specialized fanatics. It is the misfortune of all conspiracies that they lead to such stupidities, because after all, something must happen. After all, something must be done." So you see the same question and the same general position, that we don't judge these acts from the standpoint of abstract morality. And Marx and Engels defended the Fenians, but we judge them from the point of view of what benefits the class struggle. And that's the whole point. Now, actually, just back to the FLQ for 1 second. There was actually a very interesting observation made by Jean-Marc Piot. He was a Marxist academic who became not very Marxist at the end of his life, but he was there in 1970. And he compared the FLQ and the October crisis to May 68 in France. And he said the following in his diary. He said, in May, in France, students, intellectuals, and workers gradually mobilized against the bourgeois state. When the repression fell upon them, they were ready to face it, as they had been active during this offensive period. Here, in Quebec, students and leftist circles were applauding a show put on by others than themselves, that is, by the FLQ. At this level, the beginning of the walkout, the student walkout, showed sympathy for the front, but not an active movement against the state. The FLQ wants to fight for the workers, but it is absolutely unable to work with them to mobilize and organize them. So I think that's the whole point. And actually, the repression that comes down after terrorist acts fall down on the whole working class. So for all these reasons, that is why communists do not adopt these tactics. So not for any moral or sentimental reason. There was another case, actually, which is actually Lenin wrote a lot about these questions when he talked about the Narodniks. But it was another case that happened during the First World War, which was the case of Friedrich Adler. He was a member of the Social Democratic Party in Austria. And during the war, actually, out of despair, he performed a terrorist act. He killed, I think he killed a minister. I might be wrong, but he killed someone important. And he was a Marxist, or at least he said he was a Marxist. So, and actually, Lenin wrote a really interesting letter to an Austrian comrade about this, and he said the following. He said, "We are not at all opposed to political killing, but as revolutionary tactics, individual attacks are inexpedient and harmful. Only the mass movement can be considered genuine political struggle." And then he talks about the revolution of 1905 and how this was a mass movement that followed this period of terrorism. And actually, the Narodniks were nowhere to be seen in the 1905 revolution. And Lenin talks about, he asked his comrade, tell us also, please, how right it would be to regard Adler's act as a gesture of despair. I think that politically it is so. He had lost his faith in the party. He could not bear the fact that it was impossible to work with this party. So basically saying that he was this desperate about the sorry state of the Social Democratic Party, which had by then supported the war. And he was not ready to do the patient work of building a Marxist opposition to the party that had betrayed the revolution. So Lenin.
See again, this is so similar to like what conservatives are doing right now, where like right-leaning people, they don't want to listen to me when I say you need to sit down and listen to your enemy, and you need to learn, and you need to be patient, and there are no shortcuts to learning this information. There just are not. And what he's saying is like, listen, guys, if we want our Marxist revolution, we need to sit down, we need to learn, we need to be patient, we need to play the long game. The left trains themselves constantly to play the long game. The right just wants shortcuts and quick fixes. And this is why the left is in the position that they're in, because they've been playing the long game in America for like 100 years, while the right has just been thinking about basically like 2-year election cycles at an absolute most.
Makes the case in this letter that Adler, he says somewhere, Adler would have been a lot more useful if instead of doing this terrorist act, he would have patiently built a Marxist opposition within the working class movement in Austria. So again, this question has come up many times in the movement. I don't know if there will be other acts of the sort today, but I think it's very possible, because actually, when you look at it, who can blame young people?
Hang on. Man, imagine if they put this energy into actually improving the world. They think they are, Michael. They believe they are putting energy into improving the world. You guys have got to understand this. The left does not want communism because they are lazy. The left does not want communism because they don't have jobs. The left does not want communism because they want free stuff. The left does not want communism because they are mentally ill. They truly and sincerely believe that they are improving the world, not just for themselves, but for literally everyone else. And it's that belief that drives their behavior. It is that belief that allows them to constantly recruit people into their cause. It is that belief that results in protests just like this. Guys, it is Tuesday. It is Tuesday. This is the turnout in Chicago on a Tuesday, on a work day. And they've been doing this for hours. The reason the left can get people to show up to a protest at a moment's notice, to literally shut down downtown Chicago at a moment's notice, is because they believe they are doing this to create a better world. We must understand their motivations. Because when you understand their motivations, you understand these are not paid protesters. They're not doing it for money. They're doing it because of an innate core belief that the system that we have is fundamentally oppressive to every single person, and that every single person will be better off if we just overthrow the government and implement the socialist utopia. It sounds stupid to people like us because we know that's going to lead to starvation and death and suffering and all sorts of craziness. But they think they're the good guys here. They think that they are on the right side of history.
For feeling that we're in a blind alley. You think of these Russian revolutionaries of 1860, 1870s. Imagine there's hardly any working class. The peasants are not moving. What are you supposed to do? it's not surprising that these ideas develop of individual action to kind of intimidate the regime and get revenge, you know. But you look at today, that's the contradiction. You have an enormous working class, the biggest in history, which is led by donkeys, by union leaders that don't want to fight, that don't want to overthrow capitalism.
Oh, he's
and that do
shitting on the
everything to prevent it.
unions. I love
So
it. Remember,
it's understandable that their layer doesn't see
remember, this is Canada. He's not talking about the United States. Different thing.
a way out. But that's where we come in, because we understand that there is this enormous potential in the working class to be channeled towards a mass movement that can actually get us real revenge. Because what is revenge for Marxists? The real revenge is to overthrow the capitalist system once and for all, which cannot be done. Cannot be done just by individual actions. It's a long struggle. Marxism, we understand, is a long view of history. I have no idea how long it will take, but the whole point is to make it as short as possible, to bring this revolution as quickly as possible, which can only be done by building a mass communist party as quick as we can, to find these people out there and actually save some of these people from this desperation and these actions, and build.
Hang on, we got a super chat from Adam. Sorry to interrupt. He mentioned a website before. What is the name? I honestly, Adam, I'm not sure. Maybe someone else in the chat caught it. If someone else in the chat caught it, then please let us know. I'm just not sure though. Okay, thanks, Furry Bear.
To communists that can bring these ideas to the mass of the working class, and that's the role that we have today. And there's so many young people that are so angry, and right to be so. And I hope we are angry too. The system is so sick, so despicable, but we need to channel it with towards the methods that can win. And I'll just end with this quote by Trotsky, where he says, "If we oppose terrorist acts, it is only because individual revenge does not satisfy us. The account we have to settle with the capitalist system is too great to be presented to some functionary called a minister. To learn to see all the crimes against humanity, all the indignities to which the human body and spirit are subjected, as the twisted outgrowth and expression of the existing social system, in order to direct all our energies into a collective struggle against the system, that is the direction in which the burning desire for revenge can find its highest moral satisfaction." So yes, we need to.
Okay, I want people to listen to this again. This is directly what they believe. That individual terrorism, individual revenge is not enough to compensate for the violence imposed on them by the evil capitalist system. Okay, listen again.
And I'll just end with this quote by Trotsky, where he says, "If we oppose terrorist acts, it is only because individual revenge does not satisfy us. The account we have to settle with the capitalist system is too great to be presented to some functionary called a minister. To learn to see all the crimes against humanity, all the indignities to which the human body and spirit are subjected, as the twisted outgrowth and expression of the existing social system, in order to direct all our energies into a collective struggle against the system, that is the direction in which the burning desire for revenge can find its highest moral satisfaction." So yes, we need to cultivate this feeling of anger and revenge, but channel it towards this collective struggle. That's how we will win. And I'm incredibly optimistic we can achieve this if we get to work.
All right, now that you've listened to that talk, I want to go back to the video that I showed you at the beginning. I want to go back to this communist a couple weeks ago calling for mass insurrection in the United States. I want you to listen to this video again, given the context of what we just heard in that presentation. Everyone ready?
One thing you said about insurrectionists, anarchists, or one thing that we've said about them, it's not the insurrection that we object to, it's the individual bit, it's the small group bit. We're working toward a mass insurrection. So that's not the part that we reject. And the same goes for I'll just say we love the essay by Trotsky, Why Marxists Oppose Individual Terrorism, and the individual bit is an important part of the title. All right, thanks.
So now that makes a lot more sense, right? And you have to keep in mind too, the talk that we just spent 2 hours listening to from the Revolutionary Communist Party in Canada about Marxism and individual terrorism, that political group in Canada is not at all related to the Denver Communists or to the Firebrand Collective, okay? They are not part of the same group. But the left is incredibly consistent on these issues because they all read the same materials. And so the reason that he has the same opinion as this one that we just spent 2 hours listening to, this is not that they work together. This is probably not that they've ever spoken. I have no evidence that these guys have had anything to do with the Denver Communists or the Firebrand Collective. The reason, however, that they are saying exactly the same thing is because they have read the same material. They've all done educational sessions within their group on that material. And so they all believe that that material is true. So they are taking action and showing up in the world based on the belief that individual terrorism is not enough. We need to overthrow the capitalist system with collective terrorism, with collective action that is focused strategically on the long-term goal of overturning the oppressive capitalist system. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. Well, guys, listen. I was supposed to have a show tonight with Jennifer. We were going to do MK Ultra Part 2. Sadly, Jennifer just texted me, and it kind of seems like Jennifer's power is out. So what we might do instead is if Jennifer's power doesn't come back on by 9 o'clock so we can have our MK Ultra show that we are going to do today anyway, because I do a fun show on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. If Jennifer's power does not come back on, then I may come on and do protest coverage or things like that if there's stuff going on tonight, okay? So there'll probably be another stream in about an hour either way, whether that be protest coverage or whether that be a fun show about MK Ultra. All depends on Jennifer's internet. So we'll have to see. I do also want to do a programming note. Tomorrow on the show, we are welcoming Unhuman's co-author, Joshua Lissick. Joshua Lissick is one of the rare people that has influence on the conservative right that I actually like and appreciate. And Joshua Lissick is going to come on and we're going to have a discussion about writing books because Joshua is a ghostwriter. He has written a lot of books and he posts all the time about why book writing is important, why people should be engaging with it, stuff like that. I also feel very strongly that more people need to be writing books and doing creative things. And so I really want to pick Joshua's brain. And Joshua already also does understand the far left. He co-wrote a book about communism, right? Like he understands the far left. He's very nuanced. He's always been supportive of my work. And so I appreciate him for that. And I cannot wait to welcome him back to the channel. He's actually been on the channel once before. Can't wait to welcome him back tomorrow. We're going to have a great discussion at 5 p.m. Eastern time. And then tomorrow evening around 8 o'clock, hang on. I stopped the wrong window. And then tomorrow evening around 8 p.m., we are going to be doing a spy stream tomorrow. So spy stream is when we go inside a live leftist training and we record it and we watch it happen live. This is going to be a supporter exclusive spy stream though, because this training is not a public training. So if you want to come and join me tomorrow for a spy stream where we actually watch a leftist organizing call live, what you want to do is head over to the Substack, sign up as a member, $8 a month, $80 a year. That will get you in. If you are a YouTube channel member, you will be invited. If you are a Twitter subscriber, you will be invited. And if you are a local supporter, you will be invited, or Patreon as well. So if you are supporting me on any of these platforms, my main Substack, karlyn.substack.com, on my locals, my Patreon, Twitter subscriptions, or YouTube channel membership, you will be invited to tomorrow's Spy Stream. If you don't yet support me on one of those platforms, please consider signing up for Substack. You can do any of the other ones as well. They will all get you into the same event, but I prefer people support me on Substack for $8 a month, $80 a year, and I really do appreciate that. So guys, I'm going to take off for the time being. We are going to see if Jennifier's internet comes back, and either way, there will probably be some sort of stream tonight. So if you don't see me streaming with Jennifier, I will probably come back and do protest coverage, and that'll be the way it is. Okay? That's all we've got for today. Thank you guys for hanging out. I really do appreciate it. Please mount the like button on the way out the door, and we'll see you soon. And where's my outro video? Oh no, where's my outro video? Here it is. Here it is. Bye.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital.
That's difficult to answer.